budget hearing into order. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce the members of the committee, and we'll start on my far right. We have Representative Richard Lizama. He is the chairman for PUTC. To his left, we have Representative Denita Yaktimai, the chairwoman for Committee on Commerce and Tourism. To my immediate right is Representative Selena Babauta. She's the chairwoman for Judiciary and Governmental Operations. I am Donald Maloney, chair of Committee on Ways and Means. And to my immediate left, we have Representative Christina Sablon, who chairs the Committee on Health and Welfare. To her left, we have Representative Edwin Proth, the chairman for Gaming. And then over to the other table, we have Representative Leila Staffler, chairwoman for Education. And to her left, we have Representative Sheila Babauta, chairwoman for Natural Resources. And then joining us today are members of the Legislative Bureau. We have to the left of Rep. Sheila is our legal counsel, Joe Tyrone. We have our legislative assistant, Claire Sablon, and our fiscal analyst, Dave Dalpon. And then the gentlemen walking around, we have our Sergeant at Arms, Ben Terlahi and Pete Tuai. And then we have other legislative assistants, Mr. Giovanni Taitano and Cameron Nicholas. Good morning, members and department heads and representatives of the different departments. Today we are going to go over 5 of the remaining agencies and talk about your budget requests. Up first we have the Department of Land and Natural Resources. Right after we have the Department of Community and Cultural Affairs. And then we'll recess for lunch and continue on with Department of Public Works, Department of Public Safety, and lastly, Defense. Before we begin, I just want to remind the members and members of the viewing public that we are going to discuss mainly Volume 1 and 4 of the Governor's proposed budget. Volume 1 deals with the Governor's proposed general fund appropriations, and then Volume 4 is the Governor's spending plan of the American Rescue Plan. And so before we hand over the floor to our first invited agency, I just want to recognize the Vice Chairman of Ways and Means, Representative Ivan Blanco. And with that, and walking in is also a member, Floor Leader Ralph Yumo. Not present today, but is excused, is Representative Vicente Camacho, who is the Chairman for Federal and Foreign Affairs. And so with that, good morning, President Director Cabo. I open up the floor to you and your team to provide any opening remarks.
Good morning, Chair and members of this committee. Thank you for coming and giving us a chance to present our requests that we're requesting for our department. Here with me this morning, I bring my AL to assist me. I believe that working together, we will answer any important question that you guys want us to answer. So with that said, thank you again for giving me an opportunity to, I believe we've handed out the budget that we submitted it to every member. So please, we're ready to receive any question from our welfare manager.
Okay, thank you. Before we go any further, also joining us today is representing the island of Canadian, Representative Patrick St. Nicholas. Members under the Department of Land and Natural Resources, please keep in mind that there are 5 divisions in Volume 1 that was separated, but all fall under the purview of President Director Cabo are agriculture, fish and wildlife, parks and recreation, soil and water conservation, and land registration. And so, thank you, R.D. Cabo. I guess we can just start off with, based on your request, is there something that, it looks, for the most part, most of your divisions were awarded based on what you have submitted, and some with additional funds. Were your requests based on was your request done with austerity in mind? Yeah.
Yes.
And have you noticed anything that, I guess, in regards to personnel, were there any discrepancies in terms of how many FTEs you have versus what was listed in the budget?
Yeah, we were requesting for 31 FTEs, but submission, the governor submission was giving us only 18. I'm sorry, yeah. So,
Sorry, how many FTEs were you listing?
31.
31.
Yeah, for all the 5 positions.
How many do you currently have?
Right now, we only have 18. 18
18
for agriculture, 5 for Fish and Wildlife, 4 for parks and recreation, 1 for soil and water conservation, and 3 for land registration and survey.
Okay, so just to clarify, you requested 31, but based on the submission, you're only seeing 18. Is that correct?
No. 18 is for the agriculture division. And total is 31.
But all your FTEs are listed in the post budget for next fiscal year?
Yes.
Do you currently have any employees that are being funded under the CARES Act?
No. It's not on the CARES Act, it's a recall under the,
So all your furlough were recalled?
recall.
All right, at this time, I open up the floor to any of the members. I recognize Representative Christina Sablan.
Good morning, Director Cavill, and to your team. Thank you for your presence today. Could you just introduce the members to the overall mission of the DLNR, and then specifically like your priorities for this upcoming fiscal year, and just give us a better understanding of how you will be applying the funds that you receive, both from the ARPA as well as from the general fund. And then if there are other gaps in addition to the FTEs that you mentioned, like 30 additional FTEs, what they'll be doing, what critical needs would they meet that are not currently being met with your current staffing pattern?
Yes, thank you for that question. The goal for the Department of Land and Natural Resources is to promote, to administer our agriculture program to outreach our farming communities here in the island of Rota. And as I mentioned, not that I'm requesting for additional 30 FTEs, but we have right now 30 that we do. So it's not, I'm not requesting an additional FTE. But with that said, as the Department of Land and Natural Resources is to promote and enhance all the farming industry in the island, as we all see the impact that happened during this COVID-19. We see the result that we continue, even though there's no tourists coming on the island, we continue doing export to our neighbor island, Rota. So what I would like to promote is to do an outreach to our farming family here and continue their production with our department doing an outreach and assistance in making them more productive, so we can continue importing dollars to the island.
I'm sorry, could you just also explain a little more like what that outreach entails? Like, is it more just technical assistance, or is there also equipment needs that you help to make available to farmers here? Like, what does that look like?
Yes, you're right. That's one of the submission that we hide in order for us to do cut down the labor intensive of what our farmers been doing for decades, is to blend in the technology and using equipment that could assist them in making the production more fruitful and more faster to harvest. And with that said, that's the idea, is to request for additional equipment, as we all know, and I always mention to our congressman down in Livonia that most of our equipment out there at the substation are 35 years old, that we continue to repair, continue to find resource in getting new parts to repair it and assist our farming community here in the island.
Okay, so this year, your budget submission would include the procurement of new equipment?
It's in the wish list that I presented to the mayor, so hopefully we will get that funding from the ARP.
Okay, and does your department also play a role in animal control here on the
It was before. You mean animal control? You're talking about dog control?
Yeah, like the dog control program.
Yeah, it was transferred back to the municipal council role. And now I'm hearing on the other side that they wanted to transfer it back to the Illinois again.
Okay.
But we no longer do that service for the community.
Okay. And then my last question is, as you may be aware, Parks and Recreation, at least on Saipan, was transferred by executive order to the Department of Public Lands. Has that executive order also had any impact on the Rota Division of Parks and Recreation?
No.
So you're not receiving any funds at all from DPL?
No.
For that? All right, thank you. I know.
Thank you, Rep. Sablan. It looks, I'm seeing here you only have 4 personnel under Parks and Rec. How many parks do you manage?
Oh, manage about 15 different sites.
And this is just exclusively to DNR and not with collaboration with NBA?
Yep. Yes.
And are the 4 sufficient to manage these 15 parks?
No.
What would be your wish list request in order to be able to fully operate the Parks and Rec division?
Well, I'll be honest, for the past 4 years, 5 years, my supervisor from Parks and Recreation is using his own personal vehicle to transfer all the equipment due to lack of, and I'm sorry to say this, but since yesterday, I believe most of our directors are requesting for a vehicle. And I don't want to say it because it's in the wish list, but if it's possible, and you guys can assist us. He's using his personal vehicle. managing to go around and handle the clean up and beautify and landscape our parks area. We stopped that. I'm making him use a 25-year-old vehicle to go around and do that project. So I believe I need an addition, and we will submit that proposal, and to replace all the decade-year-old equipment that we have. We don't have any commercial industrial riding more than what Saipan Parks and Recreation have, or NBA have. We only have a small backyard mowing machine that we constantly gotta go through repair and get parts to repair. So that's the issue that we.
Thank you. Have you finalized your request for the funds under the American Rescue Plan? Is that something that you can provide that committee, if not today, within the next week?
Maybe next week I can.
Thank you. Part of the plans of the committee is to also submit our recommendation of how should 2233 not pass the Senate. Part of our plan is to include our proposal for the American Rescue Plan to include some of these requests from the agencies here and throughout the Commonwealth. So with that request, it's something that we can add to our proposal as well. And so with that, again, I open up the floor to the member. Recognize Representative Lozano.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Baldwin, good morning.
Morning.
And my question is, because they're using their own vehicle, what incentive do you give your employee for using the vehicle? Do you give them gas incentive or having them to report the mileage of use? What do you do for your?
To be honest with you, Mr. Calvo, the supervisor, he take it in himself. He doesn't want any incentive or whatnot. We just want to show our community that he's doing it because he loves his job.
Covers the question. Thank you.
Thank you. I recognize Vice Chair.
Good morning, Resident Director Calvo and your team. If I may, I'd like to commend the beautiful work that you and your staff do every day, every time we arrive into Rota and we take the long drive down. Some beautiful, the side of the road and whatnot. So I'd like to commend you on that. I do notice that you are putting in a request for a lawnmower, a riding mower for $5,000. And yes, I think that would only be able to purchase one of the backyard riding mowers. I understand there are different types of riding mowers that are $10,000 and up, and those are the heavy equipment type that you, I think, would probably need for the long stretch of road that your 4 FTEs have to take care of. So if I may recommend, if there is a resubmission or amendment to your budget proposal, that you do include I don't want to say specific company name, but there's a Doro, the name of the lawnmowers that are, I think, on Parks and Recs used right now. They're super fast. John Deere, just to be fair. And I think that will cut back a lot of your staff time. And to perhaps a vehicle too with a tree. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, but along the side of the road, it's not the Parks and Recreation, it's the mayor's staff. We collaborate together. There's some part on Rota, on the side of the Talo curve going down. We used to handle, you see Rota sign? We used to handle that, but MBA took over because they put up their sign there. But there's other area like Teneto Basket Court, Songsong Village Basket Court, Sinapalo, Children's Park, Small Island, Youth Center, Lizu. Now we don't clean Lizu baseball field due to the CRB, coconut rhinoceros beetle compound that we have to contain that area until we clear out with USD allow us to come in and do the cleaning. But we collaborate with the mayor staff, we help each other. So, yeah, and we park at the small island for that you are on I'm sorry, talking about the industrial riding motor. Yes, we have on our wish list that we're submitting in, and I'm happy to give a copy to the committee that will show the total amount that we're looking for an industrial commercial riding motor, like what Cycling Parks and Recreation have, John Deere. There's a lot of different brand names that it's a really workhorse for such a heavy terrain area to do the mowing.
Okay, any other member? I recognize Rep. Selena Abanta, then Rep. Sheila Abanta.
Good morning,
Good morning.
Director and your staff. You have a beautiful island.
Thank you.
How much, Saipan DLNR, the main office of the central government for DLNR, receives a lot of federal funds through grants to subsidize their local appropriations. Does DLNR, any division under DLNR Rota, get or have availed of any federal funds to help alleviate some of the financial stresses of your divisions? And are there any personnel that is paid for out of federal funds?
Now, the federal personnel that's paid from the federal funded are operate under the supervision of Director Manning. They have, separate from my office, they have their own office, rented office space here in the island of Rota. Those are the federal biologists that work with U.S. Fish and Wildlife in regards to give us permitting projects that we're going to do here in the island. That's a very good question about the federal funded that with the Department of DLNR up in Saipan. Secretary Benting is working hard with us, informing us, trying his best to share a little of what he's getting from the federal money. I'm also working with grants office in regards to assist us in other projects that we're doing here and provide us with minimal funding to assist us with our substation renovations, and especially with our aquaponic program that we have here, and the Rota, coconut rhinoceros beetle project that we're doing as we speak today.
Thank you. With respect to the rhino beetle issue facing Rota, I highly suggest you contact Secretary Benting. And it is my personal belief that if there are any federal funding that DLNR Saipan receives, should go 100% to Rota, because there are no rhino beetles in Saipan. It's not fair that they keep up any portion of them when we're not combating rhino beetle. Also, with the influx of the $550 million from ARPA coming in next week, as soon as next week is what we're hearing, as soon as the U.S. Treasury certifies it, Rota only stands to get, the entire Rota only stands to get 10 million less than of that 550 million. And I know departments come to the House because we appropriate funds, but And we're trying to insert our authority to appropriate funds as council members by passing Representative Donald's Bill 22-33. I highly suggest everybody on Rota call their senators, because it's up to the Senate now, to have that passed. Because you're not getting much of it based on the governor's proposal, the entire Rota. And we hear your pleas, but there's only so much we can do by moving around local funds. The budget submission from the governor is only about 98 million, and we have to divvy that up to everybody. So we hear your pleas, Rhoda and Tinian, and we highly suggest you actively engage with your local or your second counterparts to get the much needed equipment and personnel, because it sounds like every department that comes in here is short of staff, short of funds. And yesterday somebody pleaded about living wages for Rota because of the cost of living here. And we hear that plea, we feel for you guys. So I highly suggest you engage actively with your site and local counterparts. Thank you.
Sorry, before I hand it over on the topic of federal funds, I'm looking at the federal funds report for the Department of Land and Natural Resources. Under the specialty crop lot grant, they've been awarded a little over $500,000. Under agriculture, 60,000. Fish and wildlife, where a lot of the grants are. You have $2 million under sports and fish recreation, $1.8 million under wildlife restoration. How much of these federal funds is the secretary supporting the Rota department with? Are you seeing some of these funds being given to the department?
On the sports fishing, we received $600,000 to replace the entire marina. I believe that's under contract with Public Works now. It's ongoing. Somebody won the bid, so hopefully within 90 days the project will start in construction.
Wildlife restoration, that's 1.8.
I need to communicate with our secretary in regards to that, and let's see if we can share some funding for Rota and Tinian.
I now hand the floor to Rep. Sheila Bavon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Resident Director and your team. Thank you so much for being with us here today. I know we're going to continue saying it throughout our entire trip, but Rota is truly beautiful and is admired by many in the Marianas for your efforts in environmental protection, conservation, and really promotion of the local beauty here. So I too just want to extend my admiration for all the efforts that you and your team put forth. So I'm going to just go into your department, and I chair the Natural Resources Committee, and so I work very closely with Secretary Anthony Benaventi and his team and the different directors of the various divisions on site plan. And I do notice here that the divisions here under DLNR are different. Okay, so just for mine and the viewing public and members better understanding, I'd like to just go over the different divisions under DLNR and just ask you a few questions. And we're going to start, and the reason for this is because the 5 divisions under DLNR Rota will be receiving, according to our analysis and budget, in combination with local and the ARPA funding, DLNR will be receiving $987,000. And that's just for the Rota division. So that's close to $1 million. And there have been many changes in your budget, just like many other agencies. And so we're just going to start with Division of Agriculture. In 2019, your budget was around $558,000. It went down to almost half in 2021. And now for 2022, it will almost be as much as you had in 2019 at $544,000. So this is for the Department of Agriculture, or the Division of Agriculture. And so if you could just share what your department had to suspend, any programs you had to suspend, what major changes happened throughout those years when your budget was decreasing, and then now that it's going to increase, what are you going to bring back? Have your priorities shifted? And also, let's just start with that one. And this is for agriculture.
Okay. For agriculture, we got different division in that division. But we're going to do add on more outreach program to our farms.
Right, you mentioned that earlier.
Yep.
Thank you.
And we're going to, especially on our animal industry section, we need to assist ranchers in regards to their animals' problems in regards to disease and other issues that it's not making the cattle here in Rota healthy. And at the same time, we, on the forestry division, we continue to assist forestry with the Talakada project in regards to controlling the erosion during rainy season up in the Talakada area, conservation area.
Okay, thank you. Do you currently have a vet on hand or
We
in
don't
your
have
contact list for the animal disease?
we don't have a vet on our department. We only have a paravet, but certified paravet.
Okay, thank you. And is the division of quarantine under this division?
Yeah, division of quarantine was
Falls
under this
under
division, but
agriculture.
due to that directive from the governor that merged customs and quarantine,
Yes,
as we speak,
yes.
they're
So
coming
that
down
is
here.
Executive Order 2021-09. It is not in effect as of yet. Any executive order is given 60 days and may be amended or rejected by the legislature. And that's an entirely different process. But can you speak a little bit about that executive order and how it will impact DLNR? And most especially quarantine, because I speak constantly with employees from the Division of Quarantine on Saipan, and man, that division is crucial to protecting our natural resources from invasive species. And I know that here at Rota, the rhinoceros beetle, like we have mentioned before, right, is here on Rota, and that is so scary. It's such a huge concern because of your beautiful coconut trees, and so that is a major concern that I share with the employees, because we want to ensure that the Division of Quarantine, given their very complex regulation, right, that they must uphold federal and local regulations that are constantly being updated, that they are not left behind, that they are also prioritized, especially if a merger were to happen. So can you just speak a little bit about how that's going to impact your department?
Yeah, it's going to impact our department in data collection, in our produce that we export in our neighboring land. And also at the same time, as you mentioned, in regards to invasive species. These individuals are trained to be the front line in our two port ventures, seaport and the airport. So it's gonna answer. I'm gonna leave my AO to answer.
Excuse me, Madam Chairman. Yeah, the executive order actually kind of caught us by surprise because the municipality is not involved in the decision. The municipality was not involved in the decision or the planning stages. We just all of a sudden had a copy of the executive order, and we had some confusions when it comes to our employees that are affected. We have one that has been approved for a long-term vacation and has not returned yet until next week. The current 3 individuals that are working, one of them was confused where to clock in and out. So when you're saying it's not effective until 60 days, apparently not, because the Director of Customs has already issued an internal department memo ordering these individuals to report to them. So they come to me for guidance on where they are going to be reporting. So our timekeeper instructed her that the one that is on leave will remain on our time sheet summary because has not been officially notified of these changes. One of the greatest impact that we will see is that when we started collecting data since way back in 2014, this is only for our use so that we can manage the resources, the legal resources that's dwindling over the years. We wanted to craft a scheme for us to show you guys, the decision makers that are giving us the financial resources, that the trend of our export activity is relative to the resources and the capability of the department to assist our farmers and our ranchers to increase the capacity. We are working very hard with our federal partners to try to come in with technical resources. What we need is the resources that the local government can provide us, which is very lacking because sadly, every year that we submit a request, we specifically come up with a list of priorities that we want in order for us, or we need in order for us to accomplish the mission of the department. And sad to say that a lot of us here right now are awakened that our tourism industry is not a reliable industry by itself. We need to capitalize on our natural resources. But natural capitalizing doesn't mean that we're going to destroy the environment. We need to develop the agriculture industry at the same time. We need to protect the environment. In any industry that develops, there must be some sense of what you call this, protection for our future. But talking about the quarantine, how is it going to affect us? Since 2014, we made an internal standard operating procedure for us to collect data from exports. We provided incentives to farmers in the beginning until they got used to it, and they voluntarily provide us the weights and the types of categories or classification of produce, local produce that they produce. And we do send out quarterly newsletter that depicts the current trend, what types of cash crops are being produced and exported. And I would like to tell you guys that although it's a minute impact into the revenue stream, if we focus on this and help us to help our local farmers, I guarantee you that this industry is going to surpass the cannabis industry.
Thank you very much with your statement. There are many of us who agree with you. And I think, I truly believe that will really push us toward a more self-sustainable kind of state of mind, right? Where we wouldn't have to do so much on imports. So thank you so much for your statements. Just in the interest of time, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I'm glad you shared that you were surprised by the executive order, that your department was not involved in the decision-making or the planning stages of that executive order. That really moves me to my next question about communication and your relationship with the secretary, because you are, right, part of DLNR, and the secretary is well aware of these issues. I speak with him consistently, and so can you speak on the communication relationships that you have with the secretary? And you mentioned federal partners, and this question just is important for me to understand, especially as Natural Resources Chair, because of the federal regulations that apply to all of the CNMI. And right now, we are in a comment period for the critical habitat designation, coral critical habitat designation, and these are federal regulations that will affect us locally. And so I'd like to understand how you receive information, how you communicate information to the secretary, and if there are any concerns or barriers that you'd like to raise.
Yeah, we have a good communication with the secretary. I just wanting to continue to at least send me call me in regards to what's happening, like what Mr. Salvas here mentioned in regards to this quarantine that caught us by surprise. I don't know if he knows that that's going to happen. I'm building I'm going to start building the communication of what's going to happen with the former late Richard Senna, former Secretary Richard Senna. And so with Secretary Benaventi, I'm still fine tuning to do a reach out.
Okay, thank you. I will, that's good. That is good to know. I will, my last question is in regards to invasive species. Are there any other invasive species that we should be aware of on the island of Rota?
No, but we're worried about another invasive species that's one is having issue too is the fire ants. And
have you seen traces of that?
no, we don't see any. That's why our quarantine officers are very
yes, that they are transported.
yes, especially in the small boats that are coming in our West Marina. They're really inspecting good all the cargoes that are coming in, so we don't have that issue here in the island.
Okay. Well, I'm glad to see that your budget is going to increase for 2022. I do want you to know that you have the support of the Natural Resources Committee and many members from especially when it comes to protection and conservation of our natural resources. Because we know that it is directly tied to our economy, our quality of life, and our future for all of the generations to enjoy. So thank you very much for being with us today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and you.
Thank you, Reverend Wells. Any other member? I think Reverend yeah.
Thank you very much, Chairman. This is all right. Do you have a boat you patrol your areas like the marine protected area?
It's in the wish list. It was promised by the secretary because I think I don't know if it's coming in this month, their new boat. That once they receive their new boat, that they're going to give us this hand down. But for Fish and Wildlife, it's in the wish list that we want to buy a new one. But if that's still working and in good condition, we're more than happy to bring it here, because we do have experience that personally, where the MPA area is, where our family property is. I caught some individuals that are doing tech-in in that area that I call my Fish and Wildlife, our Fish and Wildlife officers to assist me in confiscating their net and all their gears. So it's been happening. Night fishing, it's been happening. And thanks to DPS that every time we encountered this problem, I requested their assistance. So they board our 2 officers to go out and do the inspection and confiscate those illegal fishing activity in our MPA. Yeah, we've got Guam fishermen coming in and some up from our family in the neighboring island. I'm not going to name names, but it's happening.
Thank you. And just one last one. Going back to Rebabaca's inquiry on division of quarantine, I just want to have legal counsel clarify that, I guess, under Article 3, Section 17, which kind of gives the mayor the authority to administer public services on the respective islands. I think this is something that the mayor can strictly say that quarantine can remain within our council. Is that something that you can clarify right now?
Yes, Chairman, the Constitution is clear that the mayors have the powers under Section 17 to administer the public services that, for instance, executive functions. Anything that's not judiciary and legislative goes to the mayor. So, you know, the text reads, the governor shall delegate, it's a shall, to a mayor elected under the provisions of Article 6, Section 2, that's just how do you elect the mayor. Responsibility for the execution of Commonwealth laws as deemed appropriate and the administration of public services in the island or islands in which the mayor has been elected. So it goes on, services being provided on a decentralized basis in Rota and Tinian and Aguiguan on the effective date shall continue. So the Constitution is geared towards, and I'm paraphrasing, decentralization and empowerment of local municipalities. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. So, Rebabaca, that's something that we can consider when you, should you address the executive order. Thank you, council and members. If no one has anything else they want to add, I recognize Mr. Dumpon.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mayor Party. I just want to point out in your budget, Department of Land and Natural Resources, you have 5 activities there. In your budget proposal, as I found it from the department, from the Office of Management and Budget, the department used 2 additional expenditure accounts, health and DC plan. So if you look at the governor's Schedule A under the independent program, for those 2 expenditure accounts, this is Unit 1527 for DC plan and 1533 for the health. The government has already allocated funds for those. So what I'm trying to say is that the governor has already taken care of those funds, and you don't need to include them as a request in the future, because those are excess, like an error on your part. So in the future, if you plan to request another budget for health and this plan, don't include it. I just want to point that out because if you look at your budget request, under I think 4 of them out of the 5 includes DC plan allocation and health allocation. So those allocations should not have been included. I just want to put up, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dave. And so with that, the committee would like to thank you for coming in today. If there's anything that we've missed, or sorry, that you've, or any additional requests that your department may have, in addition to the report that we're kindly requesting, I guess your department's request under the American Rescue Plan, please forward that to the committee and I will share that with the members.
I will.
And if there's anything that you would like to say in closing?
Yes, thank you. Mình mà không có gì nữa. Phải itung kan phải itung khó khăn. Mình bị là máu mi này mình xí. Gagawin na i-enroll na in-apprended ni Julian. Nakaisansa yung Departamento ng Agrikultura. So, yung brasa mo yung iservisyo na ginagawa ni publiko niya, especialmente lang ni marinero dyan nilang siya, binigita natin. Yung kimua, klaro na kami ginigizagatan di kumentus kumanidor do sulong. Tungkulu na produkto siya ba na buahan na siya ta na kan manyagi ibisinuta especialmente ang intermenti mereka suka bawa na in ayam sansa in ekinguki na ayam salapi mon in render using servicio di lanciado para ang mamay lang ng zero din mag-open lokit ng tanali tamano mula lang hindi sa gobyerno so sinya mula lang di halong ni hafal ni unirensya basta tamon na namon ni manay mo na tanong so pudera ultimo panahon tati lugar nijo be safe and suffer thank you para the
Thank you, Marty Pablo, and Chairman, yeah, thank you all for coming. Members, we'll take a short recess while the RD for DCCA prepares his presentation. All right, good morning, members. We will rise back into our budget hearing. Before us, we have the Resident Director for the Department of Community and Cultural Affairs. You'll notice under the proposal that the department is divided into two divisions. It's the Sports and Recreation and Historic Preservation. And so with that, Artie, go ahead and introduce yourself as well as a brief description of your proposal.
Thank you and good morning, Mr. Chairman, and also to all of you members of this August body. Thank you again for coming and to your sister island of Rota. I hope you guys are enjoying your stay so far. For the record, my name is Dwayne Lizama Moratita. I am the resident department head for the Department of Community and Culture Affairs of Rota. So I'd like to start first by maybe perhaps enlightening you about the mission of the DCCA in general. The Department of Community and Culture Affairs is mandated to deliver services directly to the community of Rota and the Sinamay as a whole. Its mission is more diversified and community-oriented than any other departments or agency in the Commonwealth due to its direct influence to culture, history, individual youth, seniors, and family lives here in our community and the Sinamay. It encompasses various aspects of our community service, which include education, promotion, preservation of our cultural heritage, programs and services for low-income families, protection for our youth and their families, programs for the elderly and their caretakers, physical wellness activities, and sports programs for both youth and adults. So before I start jumping into the budget, members of this committee, I'd like to first share a discrepancy that I want this committee to actually take a look into. I advocate for employees respectively pertaining to their salaries, as I believe that there are the foundation of any agency or any department, and there are the driving force that makes programs and services happen to the community and also the senior supports. So with that, Mr. Chairman, if I may. So after an extensive review of the business unit position costing summary for the business unit 1272, and of course, maybe perhaps just also reiterate what the chairman had mentioned earlier. The department is in care of two business units, which is the 1272, that is the sports and recreation, and of course the 1232, this is the historic preservation office. So for the for the sports and recreation, I have identified a discrepancy more so towards the furloughed employees that were actually restored back to, I believe this is at 64, and the way I look at the numbers here doesn't jive with the actual base salary that we actually have to pay this people or the employees. I have 2 employees. Excuse me, ladies, members of this committee. I'd like to just share maybe the numbers for these individuals. We have a first employee which is supposed to get paid or should actually reflect this cost position costing summary worksheet in the amount of 21,280. So what is provided in herewith is a difference of $1,009. And the other employee is actual base salary is $29,858. So the variance with the salary is about roughly $5,295. So I am concerned and I'm very alarmed about actually having these numbers with the variances, of course, to the actual salary that was supposed to get paid. Like I said, I will reiterate again that I am full support of employees and, of course, to their salaries, and I will fight to the finish to make sure that these things are actually corrected and down the line. So just just to indulge you guys or the members of this committee about this, the error. I believe our fiscal analyst, Mr. Dave Saburan, had also mentioned about the DC request, which fortunately enough we didn't actually include it. It shows that we submitted to be included, and now that the clarification was made, so we were able to do some revision also along the way to be submitted to your to chairman and your committee members. So as far as the overall budget in terms of operations, I can safely say that I think the CCA will be able to operate in a manner that will be stretching some dollars. Of course, that's always as usual. We will operate at a very bare minimum funding. I'd like to share some projects that actually may require some funding. I'm looking at because one of my biggest outreach and very active division, which is the Division of Youth Services, which they provide numerous programs and services for our community and especially for our youth. I wanted to see and actually include an amount in the request for others in the amount of $20,000. I would like to stress this funding to support the programs that is actively how do you say this, lured a lot of members of our community, especially our youth, which is the National Parent Leadership Month, which we normally hold it on February. We do, however, get support from our central office. I'd like to mention that for the record. However, given the fact that this activity is actually being conducted on Rota specifically, so I believe that we should not have the wait time. If we want to continue this and plan it ahead, months ahead, then we should have the funding to do this. So that's where I stand. That's one program. And the other one is the Summer Youth Empowerment Camp. Last year, we weren't able to, of course, give this activity, or rather, render this program out to the community due to COVID-19. So through a lot of planning and a lot of consultation with COVID-19, we were able to actually launch a virtual youth summer camp empowerment program. So that, my dear members of this committee, was very successful, and we received a lot of positive feedback about us launching that virtually. I am sure that even in Saipan and of course in TN too, our folks wants to go out there. We are, like I said in our mission, we are community-based department, so we'll make sure that we get these services out to our community. And the other programs that I'd like to make sure to actually have fundings readily available is for the Safe Jamboree. This particular program is in partnership with the Northern Mariners Coalition Against Sexual and Domestic Violence. And it's growing, and we're receiving a lot of positive feedback by providing this program. It may be an awareness, but it's also an education, and of course, is to ensure that we get our families together and understand the devastating effects of sexual and domestic violence. So that, my dear members, I advocate for, and I wish that this body will consider that additional funding, despite the resources already that has been proposed by the governor. I wish that this can be actually earmarked for the CCA, specifically for Rota. And of course, we are here also to help our neighboring islands, our sister islands of Saipan and Tinian. And with this also, with that said, we can be able to also maybe get one of our staff to assist in the planning, coordination, and the execution of these events. There's just some variants here that I'd just like to maybe point out in terms of the Rota 1232, Business Unit 1232. This is the Historic Preservation Office. Just give me a sec, members. Thank you so much. Okay, so we have submitted a request for operation in the amount of 11,170. According to the proposal, the proposed governor's proposal for the budget, we were able to at least get 2,099 out of that from APR. And the governor had proposed the same figure which I submitted, which is 7,500. So we are looking at a negative of 1,579. That might probably not really, per se, really hurt the fact that there's other areas here, line items that can be able to support this difference. However, I would like to see that historic preservation office has a very, very big role also, of course, for the entire city. And I'm not just speaking about Rota. I am sure that even the islands of Saipan, our brothers and sisters over there, of course, are helping HPO to preserve and protect and promote or historical significance on their respective islands. So therefore, I see it necessary that actually we look into this matter and perhaps maybe either to add an additional funding for this operation so that we can be able to move forward smoothly and of course maintain our ability to protect and preserve and promote our very, very historical significant sites here on Rota, and of course the entire sea line. So, Mr. Chairman, I think that's all I have in terms of the respective budget that it's before us. And I just seek your indulgence again, all of you members, to take a look at, revisit the budget, and of course I will be submitting to the chairman the revised budget to look into before the next level of thank you so much. Welcome again to all.
Thank you, Artie Maritita. I understand that there are several other divisions that I guess you oversee but are funded through SIPAD now, such as DYS and the Aging Center. While they're being funded by the main office in SIPAD, are there any support that the local department is providing that is being taken out of your budget?
Yes, as a matter of fact, yes, and thank you for that question, Mr. Chairman. We have an amazing counterpart up in Saipan. The aging, of course, a lot of, just give me a moment, Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to back up my. Okay, so in terms of personnel, with our counterparts inside, and the Office of Aging has 4 staff that is actually currently paid on the federal funds. We do have one under the business unit 1232, which is actually out of Saipan, again, Saipan account, federal account. We have the arts coordinator. We have 2 individuals or other employees that are funded under the Saipan account. And we have 2 under the Division of Youth Services, funded, 1 funded federally, and 1 staff is funded 80/20. So in terms of services, or rather operations, so we will be able to support this. A large majority, or actually all of these divisions are being supported by the central office. With the bare minimum budget that we currently have, we do try to allocate funding proportionately to what the activities and programs and services that they are to offer. So the majority of the assistance comes from our hardworking secretary, Joe Guerrero. And I am fortunate enough to meet have a sit with Secretary Guerrero and discuss all of these matters, as I have emphasized that we need to continue working together to ensure that we provide the same services that is being provided in Saipan, Tinian, and of course to Rota. And to answer that question, yes, Chairman, we do support that in our operations budget, and of course not to the extent.
Thank you. And do you have like a wish list that some are calling that you would like to get from the American Rescue Plan?
Yes, of course, and thank you for that. No, yes, I do have it right here, Mr. Chairman, and of course I'll be happy to furnish you a copy before you buy it electronic, or if you would like paper, I can have that ready for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and we'll certainly consider consider, including your request as well, and legislature's request. With that, I open the floor to the members. I recognize Rep. Stafford.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Director. So I want to applaud you for fighting for your staff. The work that you do revolves around providing services to the community, and that requires the humans to provide that service.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for advocating for that. I think we've heard over and over again how important it is to have a living wage in Rota, and how each of the directors are fighting for their staff. So we hear you loud and clear. I'm very interested in your programs for students, especially with the pandemic canceling so much. It was awesome to hear that you guys came up with a new idea, to do it online. I'm curious if this summer you have similar plans or different plans to provide those services, sports, or any outreach to your students. What's your thoughts?
Yes, thank you for that, Congresswoman. Of course, we will be launching our 2021 Summer Youth Empowerment Camp, which is slated for sometime, I think, mid-part June. And this is going to be a 2-week program. And as well as some other sports activities for our youth. Our sports division, sports and recreation division are working tirelessly to formulate and offer youth development, baseball development clinic. This clinic will take place sometime in July, and it will be offered in a hybrid fashion, where we take our students into a classroom setting, and then after that we take them out to the field. The reason why I push this forward, because I feel the need that we need to bring back our kids to the field. One of the popular sports here in this Sinamay, specifically I can simply say in Rota too, baseball is one of the highlights here, sports highlights. So I think the pandemic had deprived, this is unprecedented, and of course we all understand that. But because of right now the restrictions are perhaps maybe slowing down in terms of, the guidelines by COVID-19, therefore I feel the need that, we need to bring back our kids to the field. And of course with the Council for the Arts and Culture, I am not sure if any of you are aware that we have opened the first gallery for the arts and culture. And I cordially invite you guys to, and of course, maybe the time does not permit today or tomorrow, but of course it is open. And we are situated at the old Rota High School facility down in Somsong Village. So our gallery is situated on an office, and and we're displaying different art disciplines, sand painting, and other works of art. So you guys are always welcome, and this is, I believe, the first on Rota, and of course the entire Sinamay. We are in the process of inviting our kids, again pending the guidance from COVID-19 and of course the PSS, to bring our kids down here to showcase the artworks that our local artists has the opportunity to display in there. With that, alongside with the activities with the Council for the Arts and Culture, we have already implemented a series of outreach events at the school, and that was permitted, and we're thankful enough that we were able to get our staff out there. We had a 3-week program where we teach our children how to weave, from baskets, from hats, to all sorts of weaving art. And of course, after that, this week we have completed our medicinal presentation at the Rota High School, or rather the Pivotal Cooking High School. So those are the things that sometimes, you know, we might think that we don't need funding for that, but we need equipment, we need some sort of papers, and you know, and all this stuff. So of course, we will eventually, you know, consider expanding, and we would like to offer more out to the community, and as well as, you know, up in Saipan, and of course our sister island of Tinian too as well. So those are just many, or just a few of the programs that DCCA is very busy at the moment. So, and again, I'd like to toss out also another program or project that we are in the planning stage. We are opening Saturday night market for our artists, so we're going to call it a Saturday night market for our artists to come for. Mainly, we want to offer this opportunity so that they can be able to market. They can be able to market their products, and of course, we promote their product and recognize their product. So those are the three important things that we need to consider, and of course, really move forward to making sure that we do not neglect our artists, especially our, you know, our traditional local artists. Another, if I may. I'm sorry, sir. There's so many things in my head at the moment, and I'm sure that. One more, maybe I can discuss that. Oh, and of course, to promote our historical sites and actually tied into traditional values and beliefs. We are in the planning stage and to construct or erect traditional huts at our historical sites. So we're looking at 3 sites that are very, very frequented and of course very popular, which is Imaza and Motsum, ancient Lati village, the Taga Stone Quarry, and of course the Pictograph. So those are the 3 main ones that we are focusing on. This is not an overnight undertaking. It will take time for us to do this, but we will make it happen.
I want to applaud you and all of your team for being so innovative and taking these really foundational ideas of our culture and turning them into something that is something that we can enjoy for all, especially the Sagan Amit. Rep Sheila and I went there yesterday. We had a tour, we drank some medicine, and we totally enjoyed, you know, the experience. And we saw the students there also having their last day of field trip. I think that you guys are ahead of the game when it comes to especially reviving and wanting to preserve our cultural practices. You know, with bringing our students there, getting them exposed to our actual, you know, what we do.
Of course.
So I sincerely applaud you and your team.
Thank you so much, Congressman.
And thank you for giving us these great ideas, all these plans ahead. I look forward to coming back to go to the, what time does it close actually? Because if we have to have.
I'm sorry, the Sagan Amit?
No, the art
Oh,
at the school.
I do apologize. I had to.
Oh, it's close.
There's already a prior engagement with my staff, and they're out there doing some outreach also as well. So I do apologize. It's not. I don't have. I only have 2 arts consultants.
It just means I have to come back. That's all. I'm happy to come back.
Thank you
so
for that.
I yield. Thank you.
And please, of course, invite all of you, everybody, to come by. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Statler and Artie. Any other members? I recognize Rep. Valta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Artie Maritita, for sharing all of your community programs and events that are happening and are continuing on the island of Rota. I completely support spaces and events where we encourage our community to come together, to learn together and create relationships. And that's essentially what you're doing, so thank you. My question is in regards to your additional funding request and your statement of, supporting the Division of Youth Services under DCCA. I'm very glad to hear these programs that involve the youth and invest in our youth. And so my question is regarding the Rota Youth Center. Is there a Rota Youth Center? Is that under your division? And is that something that you would, consider funding?
I really thank you for that, Representative Balata. And yes, of course, we do have Sinapolo Youth Center. It is situated up in Sinapolo, adjacent to the Joaquin Tunquindo softball field, softball baseball field. With that also, and, in terms of getting some assistance, that it was submitted to this was this kind of like got really destroyed, but rather, had affected the facility in terms of, replacements of windows, doors, and all the stuff back in 2018, as I'm aware. I am currently still waiting, and of course the municipality, the honorable mayor, is still also waiting on those FEMA funding to actually be obligated so that we can go to move forward with the improvement project for the Sinapolo Youth Center. The Sinapolo Youth Center also has been listed or we actually work with under Director or Administrator Vivian Sablan. She has submitted a proposal to CDBG to assist us also in rehabilitating the facility. Again, Congresswoman, I have not received any word yet as to any type of update pertaining to those submissions. I do know that FEMA had assessed the area of the facility, and it was configured to cost at least $42,000, which I do believe that that's not even worth that much money to even rehabilitate that. Who am I to say, right? I mean, this is FEMA we're talking about. I ask of FEMA and for also the officials and everybody that works alongside FEMA is that to help us please, get this funding out so that we can be able to rehabilitate and perhaps improve the facility infrastructure for our youth.
Thank you, RD. I'm very happy to hear that you are working with Ms. Vivian Sablan from DYS Central. She does do an amazing job. They have applied and received funding for the Tanapa Youth Center. So we are currently undergoing rehabilitation there. So I'm very glad that that connection has already been established.
Yeah. And I'm sure she's not leaving Rota out of that picture, so
For sure.
I'm just waiting for her.
For sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much to I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Reverend Balata. Just to add on to that, I remember a while back, right around the time of Typhoon and YouTube, that there was actually the youth center was actually awarded $200,000 for renovations under the CBDGR. But there was a delay. Do you know anything in regards to that award?
Not right off the bat, but I've heard of that $200 submission for one for this rehabilitation and better improvement. But last time I heard, and please, I stand corrected, but last time I heard about this funding is that because the submission that was given to NMHC for the CDBG funds, we have submitted over the limit, which is the 200. So we are, I do believe that maybe the Director Vivian and Rick Castro, the grant writer, is working very diligently to perhaps maintain that 200,000. And like I said, I have not received any update yet as to its whether it's been already constructed in a way to adhere to CDBG regulations.
Thank you for that. Any other members?
Good morning, Arnie. Thank you for your presentation today. I wanted to ask if your HPO has been engaged at all with the National Park Service in this study that's been ongoing for several years now to determine whether Rota should be designated as a national park. Could you bring us up to speed on what's been happening with that and Yeah, and what are the next steps with your HPO?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for that question. Okay, so recently I think I do believe that you guys all know that there's a recent study that was conducted here in Rota. And of course, HPO is a must involved kind of agency that they need to get their feedbacks also as well. We did submit some of our pros and cons about this study. Of course, in general speaking, I think this was also coordinated under the Indigenous Affairs Office, under the Office of the Governor. So we are working closely with these other partnering agencies. And of course, with the Office of the Mayor of Rota, Municipality, which is actually greatly affected, will affect the island of Rota in terms of the decision that has to be made, or whatever decisions that they will be providing us. As far as the report, Congresswoman, I do apologize, I don't have that readily available for you, but the best the agency or the office that we can perhaps maybe obtain those copies for a copy of that report would be the Office of Indigenous Affairs. You know, that any information pertaining to the study has been, we were kept in the loop, the HPO personnel, especially I urged and actually highly recommended my HPO coordinator to make sure that focuses and attention on that matter as it pertains to our future. So thank you for that question. I hope I answered it.
Okay, any other member? All right, with that, R.D. Maritita, if there's anything that maybe was left out in today's discussion, you may forward any of that request to the committee, as well as your request for funds from the American Rescue Plan. And so thank you very much for being here today and answering the questions from the committee members. And before you leave, is there anything? Anything else you want to add? Please.
Yeah, once again, I appreciate this kind of. These are just one of the things that actually it's healthy, so that we can be able to communicate, collaborate, of course, and offer open dialogue to especially the respective municipalities that are will be affected by the budget, our financial resources to move forward. I think Director Dave Powell failed to mention that we have. Community season is out and there's a lot of community in Hinamulu. Please help our economy and grab a bag or two on your way home. Thank you so much, and you guys have an awesome day. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you again, Arby. Members, with that, we will recess until 1 o'clock with Department of Public Works Government. Thank you. Members, before us today is the Department of Public Works. Please note that several of the members who were here earlier will be making their way momentarily. In the meantime, we'll go ahead and begin, and they can just jump in after the RD has given his testimony. So good afternoon, Resident Director Mendiola. Today we are gathered here to discuss the Governor's proposal for the general fund, which is found on Volume 1 of the budget, as well as the Governor's proposal on his spending plan for the American Rescue Plan, which can be found in Volume 4. And so with that, I will hand over the floor to you to just provide the members with your opening statement.
Thank you, Congressman. Good day, everyone. Welcome to the beautiful island of Rota. My name is Darryl Mendiola, and I'm the current resident director for the Department of Public Works. And I've been the resident director now for the past 6 months. As you know, the mission of the Rota Department of Public Works is to provide efficient and reliable services by maintaining the public roadways, providing solid waste management, encouraging energy conservation, ensuring compliant construction, and meeting the public works needs of the residents and guests of Rota. Mr. Chairman and members of the House Committee on Ways and Means, I have already sent in my budget submittal, which all of you should have. As you know, for fiscal year 2022, the budget for Rota DPW has been increased from the previous budget, and although I am grateful for the increase, I would like to kindly ask for more if possible. Currently, the Rota Department of Public Works is having difficulties in providing public services to the people in the island of Rota. We are lacking the needed equipment and manpower to provide these services to the island, but we are trying our very best to accommodate and fulfill the mission of Rota DPW with what we have. Again, I just want to welcome you all to the beautiful island of Rota, and I am here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Harvey. I'll go ahead and start with just a few questions for now. You mentioned that you would like to ask for more. Is there a specific value, and if you do have the value, can you briefly explain what those additional funds will be used for?
The additional funds will help us procure much needed equipment, heavy equipment, and additional manpower for our services. Right now, we don't have the accurate figure, but we're gonna provide later.
Sure. How much more FTEs are you looking at, and where would they be assigned, and how would they assist the department?
We're looking at additional 8 more, 4 for the mechanic and trades technician section, and additional 4 for the roads and grounds section.
Do you currently have any personnel that were MOU from?
Yes, we do. We have 4 from the mayor.
And those are under the CARES Act?
I believe it's under his department, under his municipality.
Now, your initial request for this fiscal year's budget was at 68,000. Are you receiving funds through other programs or any federal grants that you're currently using, or?
Yes, we have a federal solid waste fund, revolving fund, that helps us, and building code, revenue from building code.
That's your revolving fund?
Yes, and solid waste.
Speaking of solid waste, do you know what's the holdup in regards to the hazardous waste?
I'm not too sure. I think according to the law, all premium payments were in halt until further notice. We've been submitting the hazardous spec to setback.
So, I mean, we've been getting these executive orders where they suspended they lifted the suspension on all these WEIs and new hirings. So this is something that I think that you can follow up in regards to trying to get those funds out. With the additional 122 that was proposed by the governor under your operations, what do you plan to use that
Mainly for for maintenance, equipment maintenance, equipment parts, and mostly for heavy equipment.
Do you currently have heavy equipment that
Yes.
are not functioning right now, but are repairable?
Right now, our equipments are like 40 to 50 years old. Most of them has a lot of problems right now. We got four equipments for the roads and grounds, and all of the four is 40 to 50 years old. A lot of problems. Some of them are down or not working at the moment. We're waiting on parts and stuff from the mainland. And we got solid waste. The only thing that's really helping us is the solid waste equipment. They're pretty new, but they're mainly used for the landfill.
All right, thank you, Artie. I'll reserve my question. Provide the members their opportunity to ask you some questions. So at this time, I open the floor. Recognize Vice.
Thank you very much, Chair. Director, good afternoon to your staff. I had the opportunity to go see your landfill back in February. I know there's segregated materials, cardboard, tin, wood, and I think biodegradable items like food items. Do you have any leaching or whatever you call that? Plastic paper on the ground so it doesn't leach into your water?
We do. We have.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I recognize Rep. Staffler.
Thank you. I was curious about if you plan to include training for your staff possibly in this new money that you're getting?
Yes,
or more money that you
absolutely, yes.
What kind of training would you like to do with them?
From heavy equipment certification to hazmat, walker, and just like overall management of the landfill, and road, federal highway road inspectors.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Staffler. And I recognize Rep. Lizama.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Chairman. And good afternoon, sir. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome myself to Rota myself.
Welcome.
Thank you. For the money we're receiving, we have been having a lot of problems with parts. When you be thinking about what kind of parts do you availability in your shop? Do you have that on hand or?
No, not at all. We purchased them off island. Right now we're working on getting also a crimp machine. Total amount like 15,000. And that will help us a lot if we have that the crimping machine, because we get a lot of broken hoses and it's very hard to send them off island and then have them get repaired and send them back.
Yeah, but that's something that you should be thinking about doing, having those parts on stock available, especially if you know what parts are really in demand for your equipment. I suggest that you ask for that money, and hopefully that your operation will not be, disturbed because of the parts that you will be waiting for. So I encourage you that you add that in your project request.
We will.
Thank you. Thank you, man.
Thank you, Rep. Lizama. I recognize Rep. Selena Vivalta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Buenas tardes. How many employees do you have for the solid waste?
For this, we have eight employees.
8. Based on the analysis of our fiscal analyst, will those employees be funded in FY 2022? Because it is unclear what the
I believe they were taken out of the revolving fund, and
the revolving fund.
yeah, and now I think we just called the accounting there in Saipan, and they've told us they're working, or it's being in construction right now, about how they're gonna get funded.
So I guess that puts your department in a bind, kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, I yield for now, Mr. Chairman.
So, sorry, just to clarify, the 8 that were funded under solid waste, they've taken them out of the revolving fund account? Do you know why?
Because I believe the revolving fund house can be used just for equipment. I mean,
Can I answer to that?
Sure.
Okay. The account before in revolving fund is 2083. And as of, I think, April, the balance is 137,000. So that's revolving fund 2083. But then they created account that is 2083E, effective fiscal 2021 October. And we only have allotment every month, 5,700 some. So actually, when we finish that 2083, and we don't have much money.
Okay, 1 second. Mr. Delphon, can you verify what's the latest fund status report on the revolving fund account? I thought we're in the millions.
Yeah, I'll there.
Do you have a proposal on, or I guess what other agencies have been calling it, a wish list on the American Rescue Plan? Is that something that you have readily available?
yes, we do.
Alright, yeah, if you can provide the committee with a copy of your request, and that way we can also include it in our proposal.
Okay, sure.
Any other member? I recognize Rep. Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, RD, and to your team. My first question is following up on Representative Stowler's question regarding training for your staff. So I do notice that there is 0 funding for both personnel training and even travel. So could you just address that? How would the training needs of your staff, which are, these are safety sensitive positions, right? They're dealing with heavy equipment. How would you address that with the current budget?
I think we could use operations.
It would just come out of the general operations budget? And but would that require sending your staff to Saipan for certification, or is that something that can be done on island?
Maybe could be done on him. We talked with our secretary, and he's saying he's willing to send an instructor here to teach us or train us.
The Secretary of Public Works?
Yes.
Okay, that's, thank you for clarifying that. And regarding the solid waste management program, could you brief us on what's happening with all the federal funding that was provided by Congress to help Rota develop an EPA compliant sanitary landfill?
Right now we have an agency conducting studies right now, a geo study, and then we are working with BECQ and HPO to also to have our landfill EPA compliant.
The current site?
Current site, yes.
Okay.
So that's on the works right now.
Okay. So the future EPA compliant sanitary landfill will be at the current site?
Yes.
The government site? Okay. Okay. And then, okay, so are you getting all the technical support that you need, or
Yes.
are there, okay, so things are on schedule?
Yes, yeah, also special thanks to OPD. They provided us with employee or staff just to focus mainly with our landfill and grants for trying to build a solid waste facility and do like a zero waste initiative for our island.
Yeah, thank you for that update. There was a gentleman last night during the town hall who mentioned the need for sanitary services, and you know the conversation on Saipan is about how we can provide universal solid waste collection services for our residents. Is there a similar conversation happening here?
Yes, yes. We were looking to the Office of Grants for also to ship off some of our waste, and also we're working with Saipan, the solid waste director, to provide us trash bins for recycling and garbage truck. So it's a better ways we can segregate trash for recycling.
Is that what the idea of the municipality providing trash collection service? Interesting. And is there a timeline yet about when?
I think with the ARP.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that's part of your ARP proposal?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Solana. Any other members? I recognize Rep. Sheila.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, RD Darren Mendiola, and your team for being here. Public Works is such an important part of the government, as you are responsible for public infrastructure. And so, my question is in regards to the cost of the maintenance and building of infrastructure here on Rota, since you do lack a quarry and the cost of materials are very high. So how is that being addressed? And how does that impact your department when, access to materials like cement and paint and cinder block is very difficult?
Right now we provide coral or aggregate for the people, but as soon as some of the private companies here in Ireland establishes their quarry, and it'll be better for the people. But as of right now, we provide the coral and aggregate.
And how do you acquire that?
People go in and request for how many loads they want, and we deliver it to the people.
And DPW?
We have a quarry.
We have a quarry.
We have a quarry.
Oh, I see, okay. So DPW has the...
Yeah, we have a quarry inside in our facility compound.
I see, okay. And then in regards to materials such as paint and blocks, cement, is that something that's consistently requested from the site plan, or you order from Guam? What does the cost look like?
We don't, that's actually private. We have to order it from the private company. We only, because since in Rota Island there is no one selling sand, manufactured sand or coral aggregate, so we are the one only providing the coral. So the rest, the blocks or whatever, they have to buy it from the private company of island.
So then DPW has private contracts to acquire these materials, or
We,
for projects such as road maintenance, public infrastructure maintenance?
I think we've been doing,
Yeah, there was this, our staff, the roads and ground, they're the one maintaining the roads, so they're the one backfilling it, they're the one monitoring it for free.
Thank you. I just want to clarify, my question is in regards to access. So accessibility to, these materials, yeah, all kinds that are not available on Rota. How do you access them?
for
And does
DPW.
that, yes.
We just buy it from here, from our local hardware store.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So clarified. We've just been hearing from your community that access to, paint and materials for maintenance and reconstruction, rehabilitation is very difficult to acquire. And
It's just probably very expensive, and it's available. It's available. Plywood and 2x4s and cement, they're all available here. Just maybe more expensive.
okay, thank you. And just following up on McDonald's inquiry about the roundhouse construction, is that something that is under your department's responsibility to rehabilitate?
I think that's a municipality, but DPW had it assessed, and they're the one. We are the one doing the bid, invitation to bid.
Got it. And that's the status, it's been issued, and
Yes.
ITP has been issued?
Yes.
And you're awaiting the bid?
Yes.
Thank you. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Riverwalk. And has that, did they award the bid already?
Yes, it's already. We've already identified, or they've selected a contractor already.
And, okay, thanks. And I guess just to clarify your inquiry about that, a lot of the projects, they factor in the cost to import all these aggregate or hollow block. Otherwise, the private citizens would have to go directly to the companies on site and order it themselves. I recognize Zona.
Thank you, that answered my question.
Thank you.
On the hollow block.
They don't produce here in Ghana,
No,
so
not
you
right
have
now.
to purchase it from site.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Any other member? Recognize Rep about the.
How many total employees overall for the Department of Public Works here in
We
Rota?
have 30. Total 30. Right now we have a current 25, 5 vacant positions.
How many of those, or how many employees, or do you have an MOU with the mayor's office?
Yes,
How many employees are funded through the,
we have 4.
and which division?
Mechanic and trades technician division.
What's your annual overtime cost, if any?
Actually, ma'am, we never have overtime. So if they exceed to their 8 hours a day, so we have to give them comp time.
According to the personnel service system rules and regulations, anything after 4 weeks has to be paid as overtime.
So we never get overtime. We only stick to 40 hours a week.
And then anything else after that, in excess of 40 hours is comp time, compensatory time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Have you ever had to pay out compensatory time?
No,
So what happens after they?
No one actually taking that really overtime.
What happens if the employee's compensatory time reaches 1,000 hours? What do you guys, how do you?
Our employee never reached that, that hours of comp time.
So you kind of force them to take it, is that what I mean?
It's up to them actually, if they, let's say they sick leave or annual leave, so they can use their comp time.
I see. Okay, thank you.
So to clarify, you have 25 current employees that are currently working, and then you have 5 vacant for a total of 30. This 30 includes the 8 from solid waste?
Yes.
Alright, any other member? If there are none, some requests that I've been getting from the communities, if you can order the boom mowers or rotary tractor, do you know what I'm talking about? Those machineries? The one that kind of cuts the trees along the shoulder.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
If it's something that you can add into your wish list. As well as oh, and honey wagon. I know that was an issue back then. Is that another request that?
The honey wagon right now is we're the one operating it, but it belongs to the mayor's office.
So it's,
but we don't have a honey wagon.
But the current honey wagon on the island is operable.
Yes. Right now it's not, but we're working on it. But it's operable.
You just need to repair it.
Yeah, it's a little underpowered. It can still function, but it's not in its
Fully
power.
functional. Okay. All right, members. If there are none, so what we have from you is just the request of additional 8 FTEs. That's 4 under the mechanics division and 4 under roads and ground. We will be expecting your wish list and see how we can support it in any way we can. And so with that, Artie, Ms. Pamlonia, thank you for being here today and answering the questions from the members. And so before we get dismissed, would you like to say anything in closing?
Just thank you so much again for your time and for coming to Rota and hearing us out. We really appreciate it, and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, members, we'll take a short recess while we get the next department in. I believe that's the Department of Public Safety.
And serving your own community in Rota to supplement the additional bodyguards that he comes. Is that what I'm hearing?
We have a certain number of, we have a couple of officers that are trained under personal security detail, and they're assigned whenever the governor comes here, because he doesn't bring his security from Saipan. So our officers form more of an outer perimeter security rather than direct contact.
Interesting, because I've seen many travel documents that he travels at each and every trip he does with a personal security detail. But I'll take your word for it, sir. Thank you. As well as the First Lady, she travels with a personal security detail wherever she travels, whether it's inter-island or, to the mainland.
Yes. Well, when they do bring their personal security detail, like I said, we don't provide direct security. Even when the governor doesn't have his security detail, it's always at a distance. We're always shadowing him. his movements.
Well, that's still personal security
Yes,
detail.
yes, but it's not direct, it's, you know, we're not there hand in hand with him, seeing who exactly he brings with him.
Okay. Your personal security details or your officers who are cross-trained in executive security detail, are they trained in preventing kidnapping, surveillance, counter-surveillance, recovery of a principal, that kind of thing?
I'm just gonna, I'm sorry. Regarding the protective detail officers that we have to undergo security detail to the governor, those are the individuals that were primarily trained as tactical response individuals from previous training. So when they did, when we had previous years that we were going to undergo a PSD training, I had assigned those two individuals to undergo that training. Previously, because they were trained as a tactical response enforcement team.
So my understanding.
I'm sorry, for your question regarding all those training, maybe those are the things that probably we should put up in for future training for the officers that are on the PSD.
I agree, and I will support that. So tactical training to me means a forward attack team. Is that correct? Rather than an executive security detail. They're two different trainings, as you know. So tactical, you're assigning your officers who are trained in tactical training, which is probably all you have, right? Since PSD training or executive security detail has actually never been offered, to my knowledge, in the CMI. Is that correct?
The tactical training?
No, the PSD or
They
executive.
had that back in 2015 or 16, I'm sorry, where they had the training up in Saipan. Some of the team from Saipan and crew from here were sent to Saipan to undergo that training. If I think it's an instructor from Guam that we training.
Another question. When the governor travels by boat here, are you guys involved in the escort of his boat, or does he travel by DPS boating safety boat from Saipan?
From my understanding is whenever the governor is traveling over from Saipan to the island of Rota, boating safety from Saipan are normally escorting him down to Rota. That's from my last understanding.
Has DPS boating safety Rota ever escorted the boats for the governor's brothers?
No.
Maybe not from Rota, maybe from Saipan.
I can't answer to Saipan's operations, but Rota, the boating safety has not assisted in those type of details.
Okay, thank you. I will go for now. Thank you.
Floor is open to any member. I recognize Rep. Edwin Brook.
Thank you, Lieutenant Miglonia and Lieutenant Calvo, for joining us today. We appreciate your time. I want to thank you for all you do in keeping Rota and you and your fellow officers in keeping this island so safe. I mean, it is, we go around and we just feel like it's the nicest place on earth. Everybody's so friendly here. I was just wondering, with regard to actual crime here in Rota, what are the normal, what would be the highest statistic in terms of types of crime here in Rota? I don't think it's burglary because everybody says, oh, you can just leave your keys in your car. I mean, everybody trusts everybody. It's amazing. It was like Saipan in 1974, you know? But I'm just wondering what would be like statistically one of the highest crime. Thank you. Thank you.
The numbers would actually surprise you as far as burglary. However, yes, it's not burglary. It's disturbing the peace, followed by assault and battery, usually involving domestic violence. Then a lot of juvenile crimes.
Thank you for clarifying that, because on the surface, we wouldn't everything see that. But of course you do. You are the ones in charge and have to deal with this. I want you to know that one of the things when I first came into the legislature was consistently advocating for an increase in salaries. You've probably seen my comments, but I've always advocated that it's unfair. The wages that our police officers make here statistically is the lowest in the nation compared to those their colleagues in the U.S. And I know you've had police officers or friends who you know who have transferred to the U.S. who are making 3 times your current salary. I just want to say that we continue to advocate for that, because that will also boost morale. I mean, I've talked to our police officers in Saipan, and the things that they see, I'm sure you're the first responders, things that you have seen in your career are horrific, and they share this information with each other, because who else could they really tell it to? But it's very graphic, some very difficult things to deal with. I just wanted to know, currently here in Rota, do you have like somebody to turn to, a therapist, a psychologist, in case you are, because there is PTSD in police officers. There is tremendous stress on the job. In fact, police officers statistically have a high divorce rate because of the stress from the job. Does the Rota Police Department, are you provided somebody to turn to when you have this, like issues that you need to deal with, a professional, for example?
In-house, we do not. However, we were informed by the Commissioner that they do have a counselor available through SIPAC. However, we've partnered with a lot of our local agencies here, with CDC, CHCC, and the Systems of Care Group. They offer, or at least when we need it, you know, they're there for us when we need someone to talk to and air things out. And our colleague, Director Avery Hope, was also a very instrumental part of that. Jessica Barcinas from Systems of Care, she's always on hand to talk to the officers, and that's helped out in several of our traumatic incidences. A good example would be the year we graduated our first academy from here. The following month, we had 2 suicide calls, and the scenes were pretty gruesome, and it was a shock to our newly graduated officers. So we immediately started forwarding them there. We didn't feel the need to bring in counselors from SACA. We had the capability here, and you know, they're still with us today, and it's worked out.
Thank you, Lieutenants, and I want to just commend you for your courage and also the sacrifice that you and your fellow officers make on a daily basis. You know, like I have dear friends who are police officers, and just some of the stories they tell me are difficult. You know, you have a very difficult job. I know that I and my colleagues are in full support of seeing your salaries increase. I can't think of a better time to do it, and who is more deserving of it than our officers of the peace. So I'm in full support of that. Thank you. I yield, Chairman.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Rep. Pro. Any other member? I recognize Representative Danita Yangteplan.
Thank you, Rep. Good afternoon. I also agree with Rep. Probst that I feel very safe here. When I first arrived on island, I did not see any police cars. Compared to Saipan, every 3 cars, police car. No? And it's so good to see you guys here. Now I see police officers here. I just want to ask about guns, since you mentioned suicide. How secure are the guns here, police officers' guns? Do they leave them at work or take them home? And Are there guns out there that are not registered?
I'll probably answer the first part of that, and then probably Lieutenant Calvo can answer the second part. As far as our officers' firearms here, all of our officers, just like our counterparts in Saipan, are required to carry their firearms with them 24/7. However, we pride ourselves here in really having a personal relationship with our officers. So when we start to notice that they might be having issues at home or something might be affecting them that might lead to an incident such as an officer-involved shooting, we've done a pretty good job of stepping in before it even becomes an issue. And if we see the need, we do disarm them until we see that that issue is resolved. Let's say, for example, an officer was starting to exhibit signs of stress from home. You know, they're probably arguing with their wife and so forth. And Rota is such a small community, we hear about it. Sometimes our subordinates to our officers, they don't believe that myself and Lieutenant Calvo know what's going on in their personal life. It's not that we pry, it's just we have such a concerned community that information comes to us, and we're able to act before, or take action before anything develops. So there's been instances where we've disarmed our officers, had them deal with their issue at home, and then when we see that everything's fine, we will also speak to their spouse, and then once we see that everything is going good at home, then we rearm them. But we also continue to have their supervisors keep a close watch. So we pride ourselves in doing a pretty good job of monitoring our officers and making sure that we don't end up with an officer-involved shooting or self-inflicted shooting. As far as the illegal firearms, Lieutenant Calvo is one of our armorers on island, and he'll probably be the best person to answer.
Okay, for your second question, based on the firearms that are here on island that are illegal, that you're saying? Okay, we did back in 2008, we did a mass firearms operation where we go out and we seek all the firearms carriers to bring in all the firearms to do renewing the firearms and stuff like that. Because we noticed that there are a lot of firearms that were not currently renewed. So we did a mass firearms operation. We did brought so many firearms in. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of gun owners that did not want to register or renew their firearms again. So we do keep that in the armory for safekeeping until they decide to. Also, we do have a lot of firearms that when we do, it's what we call a farm operation. We go out because we had to have some calls regarding farmers or, their crops were being stolen or their cattle being stolen. And we do go do a lot of operations, and we do find a lot of illegal firearms that were never registered on island. And we have a lot around in our armory that is awaiting the AG's request to be submitted to Saipan for disposal.
Thank you, any other member? Follow-up question? Recognize Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon, Lieutenant Saviola and Captain. I just wanted to follow up on Representative Vietmai's question. So where would these illegal firearms be coming from?
Well, all these firearms that came in are not currently came in from 30 years. These are like firearms from back in the 80s, 90s that we come in. And then we do find them when we do our operation. Some other people are still possession of those things. They do have cases that were submitted to the AG regarding those illegal possessions. So, as a matter of I can't say how many more are out there, but we're still doing our best to try and continue our operation to do that. This is why we need enough officers to do different operations to tackle all these issues. And having us removing certain officers from their primary duties to go operation is kind of a little bit hard for us, but we do try.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so these were firearms that were here for a long time, but they were illegal because they were unpermitted, unlicensed?
Yes.
I see, okay. And as you know, the gun laws in the CNMI have changed quite significantly with Safe Act 1 and 2. And I guess my next question is, how much education has there been among the police force here and also in the community about gun safety and all the changes that have been made in the laws?
Okay, right now, since they did whenever anyone's trying to renew or register a firearms to become a new gun owner, they do provide you have to undergo a firearm safety class first before you do possess any firearms, regardless of the Second Amendment is still in play. But we still have to make sure that everybody undergo a firearms safety class. Even those that did not take the class before in the past, they do come to renew their own. You still have to undergo a firearms safety class too, so everyone can be at the same with.
Okay, who teaches that class?
We have we have a sergeant also from Saipan who come down to do the instruction.
Okay.
But now we have our own firearms instructor here that does the classes for us.
Okay, and actually that leads into my next question. I'm just curious how much support from DPS Saipan do you get here on?
So Commissioner has been pretty supportive, especially training-wise. For example, this ongoing academy, he didn't have to open the doors for us, but he reached out and said, "We're opening up an academy. How many slots do you need? How are you going about to fill it?" Because he was looking at our FTEs. So he's been pretty supportive. To touch on the SAFE Act, when that was first passed, we got with the AG's office, sent down one of the AGs from there to educate our officers so that we know how to properly respond to it and deal with those type of cases. And Commissioner was supportive of that. As recent as last week, he sent down a team from the Criminal Investigation Division to provide in-service training to not just our investigators here, but also our patrol officers and our highway patrol officers. And there's been several training opportunities and so forth from the Commissioner's office.
That's good to hear. And then with respect to, I think one of you mentioned the detention center that's here. So could you just explain how that works when you do have to make an arrest and somebody has to be detained for a certain period? I mean, like I know flights are also a challenge, right? How does that work? Who pays for that? What types of challenges are you seeing when you do have to make an arrest and somebody has to be transported to Saipan?
Okay, so unlike Saipan, we don't have our own DOC, so our own separate DOC. We do have what's called the Rota Detention Facility, which is attached to our building, but we man it ourselves. So whenever we make an arrest, we have to bring in an off-duty officer to serve as a detention officer, and he books them in, monitors the detention. We open up a separate file for medication, food, and visitation, any breaks, any logs, and showers, and so forth. The meals, usually they were funded by the department. However, as far as this fiscal year is concerned, we weren't given funding for that, so Lieutenant Calvo's been gracious enough to fork it out of his pocket, and as well as some of our other officers still.
Like your personal pocket?
Yes. Our officers are gracious enough to, regardless if we're not getting paid enough, we're not going to allow a detainee to get off on a technicality because we didn't feed him. And, we've purchased meals for the detainee, water, soap, and so forth. As far as our ability to hold them, we're only allowed to hold them for no longer than 72 hours. We've got to get them up to the main detention facility in Saipan. And on the weekend, that's pretty much challenging. So there's times where we might opt to charter a flag or send them up by boat. But, if we're going to send them up by boat, that opens up a whole hornet's mess again. So we try to refrain from that. And then the costs come out of our budget, or
So
sometimes
out of DPS, not out of corrections.
no, primarily out of us, or the mayor has been very helpful in covering those costs. And it's not just the detainee that we're sending up, it's also an officer, because we're not gonna send them up. We're not gonna send a detainee up in handcuffs without an officer at his side, right? So that's 2 people you're sending up, plus, you know, your little $15 stipend to get a Happy Meal.
Do the officers and Lieutenant Howell, did you get reimbursed? Or was that just totally out of your pocket?
No, ma'am, I don't get reimbursed, but.
My goodness. I hope that that's part of the budget solution.
Yes, we did put in $5,000 for food items.
Okay,
But
so
yeah.
maybe a little bit there for reimbursement. Okay, and then just a few more questions. Going back to the inquiry regarding crime statistics here, could you talk about the drug problem? How much of a problem is drugs, and particularly ice in this community?
That's the big challenge that we face here, because, you know, if you think Saipan is a small area, you pretty much know just about everybody. Here, everybody knows you and your ancestors and what you're gonna do tomorrow. So doing surveillance is kind of tough for us. We know and we hear that it does come in, and we pretty much have a good idea of who's doing it and all this, but as soon as we have an investigation or surveillance operation in place, they're already tip-top about it. But we try our best to bring in our counterparts from Saipan to try and do undercover sting operations and so forth by bus. By bus here is virtually impossible. I mean,
Why is that?
the users here pretty much know the officers from Saipan already. Okay, but yeah, we make do with what we have. We try our best to at least mitigate its effects here. We would love to do more, but the circumstances.
Coming in from Saipan?
You get pretty much even from Saipan and Guam.
By mail, by...
There's been instances where it's been by mail. There's a couple where, you know, they have passengers try and bring it in. Saipan has actually been doing a pretty good job of just stopping it at their end. But there's sometimes where it'll leak through, same as Guam. We had one recent incident where a person in Guam actually tried to give one of my officers a package. He was pretty much smart enough to check it out and then just turn them into the Guam Airport Police. So, they do try, but most of the time we're able to head it off there. But as far as it circulating down here, there is, you know, we're not going to sit here and not eat. There is a drug problem. We are aware of it. We do try to do something about it, but at the same time, we do have our limitations.
Sure.
And we try to get over it, but.
Okay, but
I mean,
drug-related arrests are not among your top?
No. I mean, we'll get lucky sometimes from a violator stop, and, you know, we'll come across, we'll do a consent to search, or sometimes it's in plain view, and we'll get it that way. But doing undercover operations has been a challenge. It's something we're still formulating how to tackle. And, you know, we're working with a lot of our contacts from different states on how they do it in small rural areas, try and get some ideas from them.
And is there also random drug testing within the force here in New York?
Yes, we don't like to call it random because we like to do 100% testing across the board. But random so far as we don't announce it beforehand.
Okay, so that's done on a regular basis?
Yes, we try to do it annually.
Okay. And then it gets sent to Saipan, or it's processed here?
Usually it's one of the immediate tests, but then if there is a positive, then it gets sent off to Hawaii.
Okay. And then my last one has to do with your rescue boat. You mentioned you need a better engine for your rescue boat. Is there just one boat? And what's the problem with the engine?
So according to the officer in charge of the boating safety section, the issue he's having with the boat is that it's cavitating when it goes against big swells. So my understanding of it is it's pulling in a lot of air when it's trying to fight through the waves, and it causes the boat to sort of slow down. So it limits or it hinders the response.
And there's just one rescue boat for boating safety?
Yes.
Okay, and one of the earlier agencies that was here, I think Fish and Wildlife, said that sometimes they tap GPS So there's one boat that gets shared among multiple agencies? Do other agencies borrow your boat?
No, we don't share, we take them with us. but yeah, we offer our services to them. But no, we don't give them our boat. We'll let them ride on our boat, and we'll assist in their operations, but we don't give them our boat.
Is it just DFW that asks for that kind of assistance, or other agencies?
Usually DFW, we did have some instances in the past where VECQ asked for our assistance when one of the fishing vessels in Saipan ran aground on the backside of the island, and they wanted to go out and assess the damage to the reef.
Okay. And then you earlier said that the DPS boat and your officers have never been involved in escorting the governor or his brothers either trips down here or up to Guam from here. Is that correct?
Yeah, not to my knowledge. We do not provide that security, because once our boat leaves here, it leaves us vulnerable.
Right.
We're going to have a rescue situation. That's why we've been really forging a strong bond with our local dive shops, so that they can assist us whenever our boat goes up. Like recently, our boat would go up to transport fishermen or boaters that come from Guam trying to get in. So we got to bring them up to Saipan for quarantine, and our boating officers are there overnight. So we ask our dive shops here if they can assist, or at least have their boat on standby, so that we can get an officer on there if there is a search and rescue or a distress vessel.
Sure. Has the boat ever been used for transporting other public officials?
No.
I yield.
Thank you, Rep. Solana. Now, before I hand it over to Rep. Abalta, going back to the canine request. So, what's the status on the one that was recently procured through the delegation funding?
So that K9 that we purchased in 2018, affectionately named Officer Rota. He was certified stateside as a drug detector dog, and one of our officers was certified as his handler. However, when we came here, we were informed that since it wasn't purchased through the customs' kennel or wherever they get their dogs from, that it would have to recertify under the customs SOP. And we've been following up with customs up there, trying to get it certified under their SOP so that we could start using it here. A lot of challenges in that regard. They were saying that they didn't have any training scheduled, and then when they were trying to schedule it, they were trying to incorporate, I believe it was Palau or some other islands to come in and also cross-train, so that they'll just take care of one big class at one shot. And then when that all got scheduled, we got hit with COVID. So now, our dog, its handler still maintains its national certification, keeping up with its training standards. But again, that officer is pretty much funding this dog through his personal funds, out of his pocket. He pays for the food, the cleaning materials, the dewormers, the shots. It's all out of his pocket. The dog's actually at his house because we're undergoing renovation, so he's got a kennel at his house. He's got it with him. But he does train it every month with whatever drug evidence that we have left over that's been cleared by the agent.
Okay, so now the issue is just to provide funding to maintain the trainings and I guess
pretty much
food and supplies, as well as wait for certification from us. Okay. Now, in the interest of time, because half the members will be flying off today, I will hand the floor over to Rep. Bachman, and we'll take one more before I close out. And so, Rep. Bachman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Lieutenant Calvo and Lieutenant McGlynn, for spending time with us today. My Uncle Jackson Jack served on the Rota Police Force when he lived here, and he always had great things to say about the Rota Police Force. So thank you very much for that. And just like my colleagues, I feel very safe here, and we can learn so much from you. So in the interest of time, I will run through my questions, and I will begin by by asking you to describe your chain of command. As we know, DPS, the police organization, is a paramilitary organization, and the chain of command is paramount to carrying out missions, right, instructing and receiving orders. And so can you please describe your chain of command for us?
Okay, so other than the director, he has the assistant chief of operations, which is me. Currently, I'm occupying that as a lieutenant. It used to be a captain, but he recently resigned. Then under the assistant chief of operations, you have the numerous sections, which is patrol, highway patrol, criminal investigation, boating, and school resource officers.
So, as assistant chief of operations, you report to
The director.
to the director, who is not here because he's outside the commission,
Yes.
correct? And then the director reports to
The commissioner and the mayor.
both of them.
Yes.
So they are of equal position.
Pretty much operation-wise, it's commissioner's office, but everything else municipality-wise is through the mayor.
So when you communicate your needs for equipment, uniform, materials, resources, whether it's for a specialized unit like a rapid response team, tactical needs, or basic needs of the department, that goes through the commissioner or the mayor?
We're pretty greedy, so we go through both. We try our
I would
chances
call that
with
very
both.
smart. That's smart. Okay. Okay, thank you. That gives us a good idea about that. I'd like to move into vacant positions that you see here in our budget, that there are vacant positions currently. Are there any that you'd like to bring to our attention that are crucial? Vacant positions that should be filled?
Does everything count? All our vacant positions are crucial. We are looking to fill them.
And with the promotion, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but with the promotions that we were speaking of earlier with rank, will that address the vacant positions?
Some.
And I'm sure on Rota, just like in Saipan, promotions are granted and rank increased, but salaries are not. So at this time, can you just help us understand the salary range? How much would a cadet expect to receive annually?
Now they're pretty lucky because they're getting it at 16,000, 16 or 17,000. That used to be a PO1 salary.
And is that full-time?
Yes.
And for a PO1?
They're around 21.
21,000.
Yes.
So the PO1 that you were describing earlier, who is, conducting sergeant level duties, is receiving 21,000 a year?
Yes.
And then what is the max? What is the cap right now?
If I'm not mistaken, it is 24.
24,000
As
a year?
Yes.
Oh, for a PO1, okay. How about for a sergeant, lieutenant, captain?
The max? I don't have that on hand right now, but roughly for a PO2, I believe the max would be somewhere around either 25 or 26. The 3 should max out somewhere around 29 or 30. And then a sergeant should max out somewhere around either 32 or 34. And then a lieutenant, hopefully, I would love to see it at 40.
But currently is?
Currently, we're getting 32.
Same as us.
Yeah, but you get to sleep at home at night.
But that's true. That's true, we do. And we also, yes. We, so it is funny, but it's not funny. You know what I mean? Like,
It's gotten to the point where it's funny.
And so thank you for sharing that with us, because like my colleague stated, that definitely contributes to morale and helps alleviate stress in the home, especially when you're doing all of these things that you're expected to do for the community and to keep us safe and enforce the laws that we create, right? And so public safety is one of the major foundations of a prosperous and successful community. And and we just want to ensure that you're given the proper resources to carry out your mission. And so, just going on, when salaries and rank, when that discussion comes into play, performance and reviews come on the table as well. Can you describe any performance reviews or any kind of, assessment of the force or the officer that happens?
Okay, so annually we do a performance review as required by OPM. However, under our command, we've actually gone to each supervisor and we try to do it at least twice a year. We ask our frontline supervisors to do it once every quarter.
And what does that review look like?
We have a lot of dedicated officers. However, they require more training. Training is something that you can never get rid of, and it's something we're always going to welcome, because challenges in today's the law enforcement field today, they pop up every other day, and we want to be able to meet those challenges. So that's one thing that keeps popping up is, yeah, we may have trained them properly in the academy, but then if we don't provide them the additional training necessary throughout their career, they're going to start falling back, and sometimes that shows in our assessments of them that, well, I wasn't really familiar with the SAFE Act. So now we start bringing in the AG's office, they start talking about it, they're more familiar, they start performing better, they have a better knowledge of laws and regulations. And then with us, we have a pretty good program where if the streets are dead, and you've done your rounds, come in, do a quick hour of study the laws that's been enacted, so that when you're out there, you pretty much got it in the back of your head.
Thank you for that. We, as a body, really do support training, professional development, and so it's very reassuring to hear you speak of that. And with our public safety, department, we not only support professional but also physical training and review, performance review. My last question is in regards to the crime rate. Just a follow-up question from my colleagues. Are there any cold cases currently on Rota?
We do have a couple of cold cases. Most of those are burglary and theft cases, or like cattle rustling.
How about murder cases?
No.
No homicide?
No. I haven't had a homicide here in probably 30 to 40 years.
Thank you. That is all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, and for the last question from Rep. Babal.
Thank you. You mentioned you have a detention facility here. What is the capacity of the detention?
3 males and 1 female. However, that building is undergoing renovation, so now we only have the juvenile cell at our former administration building, which now houses our entire operation, and that only houses 1 detainee. And there's no toilet to it, so they have to use the main toilet.
Okay, is there any jail facility here, prison?
No, that's just the detention.
So whenever there's a big case, you guys have to transport the
Yes.
detainee or
So normally when we make an arrest and we file all the necessary paperwork, we fly them off the site for a rating, and they're just held there. If they post bail, then they can choose to come back. Now, if there's a sentence that's carried out, they serve their sentence in Saipan, if it's a jail sentence. If it's home detention, then they do have a program, I believe, where they can serve it here. But we do not house anyone in our facility for more than 72 hours.
Okay, good to know. You also mentioned that you guys have to find as a challenge to transport these arrestees over to Saipan right now if it calls for an arraignment. And you guys foot the bill for that? Rota DPS pays for that?
It's primarily Rota DPS and with a lot of assistance from the mayors, because our operational funds in the past few years have not been sufficient enough to cover it, so the mayor has been covering it out of his money.
Okay, I would like to suggest you guys request that the AG's office or Department of Corrections, because you guys do not have a Department of Corrections in Rota. I highly suggest you guys ask them to fund these things.
We have asked that in the past, ma'am. However, we were informed that it is our responsibility. Likewise, if they finish serving their sentence in Saipan, it's our responsibility to fly them back here.
That's interesting. I'll save my comments for that off the record.
That's why we request for a lot of travel funding. It's not just working. It's not jumping trips. It's to cover costs like this and training.
Thank you very much for your time today and for putting up the following questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. About that. Now, in closing, just to recap, so based on your initial request for the 2022 budget, it looks like your operations, for the most part, was covered through the general fund and the ARP. But you are needing the additional around $500,000 to ensure that all officers are paid their what they're supposed to be paid in terms of rank and thing grade increase, as well as all officers that are due a change in rank, if you will. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so the additional request not included within your submittal would be funds for the canine handler and the engine for a rescue boat?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in addition to that, we've been getting several wish lists from other agencies in terms of what they can try to get from the American Rescue Plan. Aside from what was proposed by the governor, does the department have its own wish list?
I believe the director had submitted a support wish list, but it pretty much is what we've been requesting: vehicles, training, most importantly salaries, and the emergency the 8,000 devices for our fleet.
Okay. Thank you. I guess that's just one request that we have from the committee, if we can get a copy of that wish list. As stated in earlier sessions, without the passage of 2233, which requires legislative approval, one thing that the committee is going to prepare is a proposal as well as to how these funds are spent. And these wish lists from all agencies are something that we plan to include as part of the legislature's proposal on those ARP. So that's something that the department can provide the committee. We definitely appreciate that. And so with that, members, thank you, Lieutenant Calvo and Manonia, for your time today, as well as sharing or answering any questions that the committee brought forth. And I now hand the floor over to you gentlemen to provide any closing remarks.
Once again, thank you guys for coming and hearing us out. I know you guys probably heard it from our counterparts up in SACPAC, how critical we are and how much we need funding, and it lies here. Our biggest thing is to get our officers compensated so that they continue remaining dedicated to this department. We don't look to get rich, we just look to get what we justly deserve. And my officers are always willing to sacrifice for the betterment of the community. But at the same time, we as a government need to look at how we're going to best fund that. It's useless to have dedicated officers and yet you don't give them the tools or give them the proper pay to go out there and do their jobs. Our community sleeps well at night because our officers do a pretty good job of going out there and doing their responsibilities, taking care of their responsibilities. Thank you for allowing us the time to add on and give you our 2 cents. I hope it paints a clearer picture as far as how the department is run here. If you guys have any further questions, we're always available. I'm always willing to talk to anybody. I've got nothing but time. Stay safe, vaccinate, and spend your money here, please.
And so with that, on behalf of the committee, please express our appreciation and gratitude to all the men and women in blue. And so thank you for your time today. And we'll now take a 5-minute recess to allow the last agency, Department of Fire and Emergency Medical Services, to prepare their presentation. Thank you. Good afternoon, members. Last, but certainly not the least on the list, budget hearing is the Department of Fire and Emergency Medical Services. With us today looks like the entire department, which we truly appreciate. The past 9 departments, there was only that 1 or 2, but it's great to see everyone here in support of the Deputy Commissioner's request, and I guess to pull our heartstrings. And so, thank you again for being here. As you may have noticed, some of our members are actually catching a flight out, but we are here to listen and bring up your requests with the rest of the members when we get back to Saipan. And so with that, I now open the floor to you, Deputy Commissioner, to provide your opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That is good to be the last one, but sometimes it's not. It's bad at the same time when you guys are catching flight, and I wish you guys in honesty. If I'm going to dispense, siyempre may kwento sa moro, Mr. Chairman, if I may. No galumeni no kupunito mo sa dangking kaini toro ri membros comprendia na predikat estina agensia us galumeno at di betutun like I said, no one thing, Mr. Chairman, like you said, that the not the entire, I only invite the commanders on my agency, and if you see over to your left side, you see the red t-shirts that they are all wearing. So hindi mo famas manggay no warason na gumayo kini na para be istiguzi po deni postalo Mr. Chairman si Zeus Masi dan honi rabli todo do na manggay distinguish dan imanggay na membro ni na komite talwa no inano si Steve Kemes mo, i-residente ni departamento gumululuy para proteksyon dan hinimlok winigi tiramenti Marianas, particularmente lugat-lugat. Sabay nasigura na magkait na waha atensyon danging waha inisisidad pulbandan minalamu wini danging sige manggayit po sa wasiguguran na you guys are safe. Datana unito mo na sila hinanap, Mr. Chairman. So without further ado, Mr. Chairman, you back and you guys open. Like I said, welcome to Rota para turo samzo na, and I hope this fruitful hearing will hear us from the committee. Then I will explain the by nayam do gi morning pantusinya na ginagawa besinya para comprende dan hafa para invite zo da bensai ni nasinyo para be opi hamdu tati gi molik dan dinan sina manera. Si Zeus masih, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner. Before I proceed, I'll go ahead and hand the floor over to Rep. Sablan so that she can go ahead and squeeze her questions in before she has to leave.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and testing. And good afternoon, Deputy Commissioner, and good afternoon to your whole team here. It does look like the entire department is here, so welcome and thank you for your presence.
You guys are safe.
I first wanted to ask if you could just give us maybe some statistics to start with. Like what has the firefighting response looked like this past year, since the last time we met, your emergency response, and also how have your duties changed, if at all, as a result of the COVID-19 response?
has defense been involved in that here?
Unggan dinansin Red Sablan tremendously. Have you guys seen Parinot Marianas dan Papa Luta? Uno minoliknya Luta i tazak sabia za pwede saina usua da bungan fateno na chenut magigi za kita za halum loki gwinigi logata. Allah unggan like you said dong kululu natin nilai ka di momentum i ane mababa esti linya i pandemic ane deklara gobierno tati i 2000 early 2000 in February, March, that we condemned the lockdown and starting from that point. Yes, I know na timpa labandan ay timampi paraw i defense. However, as long na atutun mo na i-task force na ma-create, ma-establish umimbrasa i-defense entiramente Marianas, that includes Rota. And I probably mentioned that last year, no Sablan maybe. And I think the mayor in the first place was really reluctant to send my people up to Saipan when they created the task force. So they were part of the transitioning to establish the Canoa resort for the containment location. So we are part of that, and I'm part of that for that 1 month duration. And some of my commanders and firefighters. That brings a lot of changes in dynamic of response to defense, for that matter. A lot of energetic side that we look in Baba, that how we're gonna respond, how we're gonna protect not only the community but yourself as a responder. So that really the most focused area on the defense side is how can we protect our responders? So with that, we know back then that we lack a lot of equipment. And up until now, wagwaha sabiya, we're not really in place 100%. But as long as we go forward with this, we finding ways temano patafano innovative temano ne para tatsuli. Maulik zan mas takilulu para taprotehi i tautautan ay manuzong gena para upan manatundagi komunidad. That is the most crucial part. So that really changes the dynamic. Yes, Rep. Sablan, on the protocol of defense really changes 360 degrees changes with this pandemic when the pandemic hits us in the CNMI. So I hope that answers a little bit to that opening statement, Rep.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Commissioner. And in the last year, how many fires have your guys, your men and women had to respond to?
Well, it's on a rotation basis. When we had this pandemic, we sent 6 personnel out per rotation during the whole cycle when we know the Saipan, and now we have the knowledge that we can go back here and maintain our site. And then Saipan continue to do the same procedures and the same protocols what they establish, we establish in Saipan, and we have to establish also in Rota. So it's on a rotation basis. We started at 6, and then on a monthly basis, we rotate for another a shift of a group to have the knowledge also as well.
Still sending firefighters to Saipan?
Right now?
For the task force? Yeah.
No, right now that the 5 that are up there is to augment the lack of manpower that the commissioner requested to both resident deputy commissioner to respective islands. So, but on the initial phase of Animababay pandemic, we are there when we start the task force. We are there.
So just stepping aside from COVID-19 and the task force, for like your regular responsibilities for fighting fires and doing emergency medical services, emergency medical response, do you have statistics at this time?
Unggan sinya beopio neno Rep. Sablan and from the October run from last year. A total of 63 runs for Rota para Lucta este año. It's a true emergency, 17, actually 47 true emergency, and 17 non-emergency. You know, I mean non-emergency is umano man aglang tao hulo na malasat ma-check. So when we come up there, it's not a serious what's that response, but it's just like a thing that you have to look up. Maybe a concerned citizen call up na malasat come along with it, those kind of things. But the true emergency is a 47 from last year up to present, plus the 17 non-emergency. Actually, it's an emergency since every run is we call it emergency. But in the actual response, we classify that as on our level. It's not a non-emergency, but it's a very low-level emergency.
Yeah, but it's still a response.
But it's still a response.
And then what about for fire?
On the fire side, last year we had the one thing. We are in dire needs of a containment brush fire truck. However, just to let you guys know, on the effort of the municipality and the department, we managed to have a grant. I applied for grant, and they approved us with one brush fire truck. It's en route right now. The contract has been en route from the Office of Grants and Management. But roughly on last year, we ran probably over more than close to 50 brush fires last year. And even to present now, I'm calculating it's not even starting from the drought season already. We had probably like 8. And it's gonna, just to advise you guys, it's gonna hit us more with this drought season. One comes June, July, up to before October or July.
I remember that being a challenge that was mentioned in the last budget was that you needed equipment in order to fight these fires. So I'm glad to hear that there is a brush fire truck on the way.
Yes.
Do you have any other firefighting equipment that you need that you're seeking either through the general fund appropriation or from the ARPA?
Bulan. I may not provide you with the list, but Mr. Chairman, maybe I will assure you that my list on equipment for that matter, Rep. Sablan, and I hope we take fire as really a critical issues on fires, and also not only for fires but on medical response area, and especially with this pandemic, and we're not out of the woods yet. So yes, we have, but I can't give you the actual list right now, no Rep. But Congresswoman, I will assure you that I can provide a list of what we got that we don't want, we need it in Necesita. Okay?
Thank you, sir. And I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Sablan. Now, just to piggyback off of Rep. Sablan's inquiry, while you do have your request, what about the equipment through CBDG? Have you been awarded any? Or?
Mr. Chairman, nothing, no taza para luta. I assure that there is from the state fire or central fire, I believe, but taza para luta. But I as I understand, those portion of grant na ma-apply gilo sa Saipan, that's also, there is a portion that gonna come down to Rota. As the Commissioner stated earlier, na Waha Galomezigi na grant on the CDBG will reflect also a partial funds from Ginezigi na grant. Okay. But yes, we might be having partial grants from that, partial funds from that grant.
Okay. Thank you. Now I'm going to switch over to the proposal. Looking at the department's request that was submitted to the governor, and based on the governor's proposal from the general fund and with the American Rescue Plan, it looks, for the most part, it looks to see that your request was granted, provided that there's actually additional funds awarded to your operations. Now, going down to personnel, I noticed that if you look at the volume 1 of the proposal, I noticed that there are several officers that aren't, or several firefighters that aren't listed on here, and I'm assuming they're funded through other programs or federal funds. Do you know what the number is? How many firefighters are funded through federal funds or revolving fund account?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to clarify that again. I think last year I met with you guys and I spoke to you guys when OMB made a tremendous mistake taking out some of my firefighters, sworn-in firefighters, and putting in the cadets as firefighters that are not yet firefighters. So we make that changes drastically when I appealed to the committee last year, or last fiscal year, and I also requested through the Senate side. So we did manage to amend that, and right now we are back to normality. All the my firefighters are in place. I'm not sure where you coming, no, Mr. Chairman, no na what taibigan ng ilista na wag ilista mo sa taza ng ilista ko.
Well, here, actually they're on the list, but here's one example. So you have about 4 firefighters, or 5 firefighters that are partially funded through the general fund, and then the other half of their pay is funded through various programs.
CGPA.
CGPA. Is there an agreement as to how long they would fund?
That will be probably like 2 years.
By next fiscal year?
By next fiscal year, yes.
So they would have to go back?
And in fact, Mr. Chairman, to tell the truth, that action is not been out yet. And I appeal to this committee to please help me out. Where's that action? It's still sitting in, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the last is at OMB. The general fund will supplement the 50%, and the under the federal side will be another 50% that equals the 100%. But unfortunately, that thing is not being out yet. That action is not out yet. So in reality, trabiya TBC niya bialog na it's counting now 1 year or count down the 2 years.
So the 2 years hasn't started, but should we implement the fiscal 2022 budget? That will be when the
exactly
2 years.
Okay.
Currently, how many total personnel does the department have?
We got 23, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. And I see you have cadets here. How many total?
12.
And when is the expected start of the academy?
Before, Mr. Chairman, no ta continua jawaban for the record. I want to submit a letter to you requesting, and this whole committee, this body, for these cadets to, and I even have a countdown of the appropriation that is needed, for these cadets to go through. As probably in Tingwa na we are going through the 14th Emergency Fire Academy anytime soon. They are up on the preparation right now. So these cadets, Rep. Babauta earlier stated yesterday in the mayor's opening remarks, in reality of having a lot of additional employees through the mayor. To answer some of that question also, Rep. Babauta, there they are. Those are some of the numbers that you're asking the mayor yesterday. So majority of that comes from the mayor's office. Some of theirs comes from IABEL to OBR office. And the others that are waiting right now is the grant that we applied the grant from when the pandemic hits, and me and the commissioner and the other deputy and the commander that commands up in Saipan applied for this grant. So we managed to get that grant, and out of that grant, the original 7 cadets that we had back then, when the pandemic hits, then we closed out the 13th cycle, and we don't complete that cycle because of the pandemic. But the 14th cycle Emergency Fire Academy is coming up by end of this month. So anytime these cadets will be flying off to Saipan to go through a vigorous training and certification. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I officially requesting these fire cadets to put in this fiscal year budget request of additional 12 FD for firefighters in the event naman makumplido siya na alegro i-pofanono para ito niya academy starting by next month. But there should be up there before the end of the month.
And how long does the academy last?
It's going to last for 4 months.
4 months.
4 months.
By the time they're done, that should hit
By October.
2022.
Yes, yes. So I appeal to this committee. I understand, Mr. Chairman, you see that I got some funds from the ARP also that you see, and I know that this committee could probably support me in granting the position, and I've seen that I can manage to probably request through the mayor and through the approval of the governor to give us these funds to augment this cadet's salary for this next fiscal year. So with this, Mr. Chairman, I officially, for the record, giving you some of these documents for you and for the members.
Thank you, Bill. Now moving on to my next question. It shows you have 10 firefighter 1 right now, or at least 9 with 1 vacant. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
How many of these are new firefighter 2 positions?
Well, actually, some of them, no pagwawalo siya no evaluation that was just submitted, and they're up for promotion. But due to the austerity and the governor's directive, we can't move forward. But yes, firefighter 1s are now eligible to be promoted to firefighter 2s, and the rest incline up to the next level also as well.
So all 10 positions are up for promotion?
As far as they complete the evaluation and all the respective, and I cannot say right now, yes, it's 100%, they're all going to be promoted, but I need to go back to the record and make sure that everything is compliant, that they're satisfied with the OPM compliance.
And the same with firefighter 2 to 3, it's the same?
Exactly.
All of them are up for promotion?
Yes.
And you only have 1 firefighter 3?
As you see in there, yes. But there is in-house that actually hatutuli position, but it just need to do the allocation of promoting him to that position.
Yeah, and beyond firefighter 3, is there a cap or?
There should be a lieutenant. After firefighter 3, we got sergeant and then lieutenant, and then after lieutenant, you should be elevated to captain.
But you currently don't have a sergeant?
Yes, I do. Firefighter 3 is considered for us is a sergeant.
Okay. And do you happen to know what is the average firefighter 1 salary in the nation?
Well, Mr. Chairman, probably right now I cannot really answer you, but because there's a fluctuation of this pandemic, and I know there's a union out there that's really advocating about these first responders having a higher pay because of the issues that they're elevated of additional responsibilities. So I really assure you, Mr. Chairman, but as a firefighter here on the OPM level side is I think starting at 21,000 with benefits.
Do you know what Guam's firefighter 1?
I have no idea, Mr. Chairman.
Do any
Chief, you have any idea?
45.
According to my lieutenant back here, it said 45, so it means we're underpaid, right?
45 for a firefighter 1? Okay, for now, thank you, Deputy Commissioner. I'll open the floor to other members for their questions. I recognize Representative Sheila Babauta.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome. Thank you very much for spending time with us. Thank you for your service and for bringing your team here today. I really wanted to focus my questions on your facilities, your equipment, and maintenance. This is a huge part of the department's needs in order to carry out your mission. And so can you please explain to us your facility? So your location, how is the status
yes,
and any needs?
Yes, Rep. About that. Station 8 down in Songsong, I think we need to make some uplift and up to standard, more and more standard into the federal standards. We still have some issues down from previous calamities that struck us. The last one is Typhoon Mangkut. And up until now, our facility down there don't have any. We got a generator, it's a non-working generator.
So you're connected to a generator?
No, we connected to the grid, but we got emergency generators in the event that we naging wahal sa kasi situation. So yes, I need funds to no sabi na maatan nito if dangin tisinya maligwa ko start request daw nasuha daw mapigaw si otro. I have no idea, Mr. Chairman and Rep, about what happened from the previous request from FEMA. I understand we don't have the funds for that right now. I appeal to the public assistance. I think they did not classify under that also as well. So I hope this general appropriation from the general fund can alleviate to support us in procuring one generator, or in the event ng sinya maaligredo, sinya we can put it back online. Will be much more appreciative para the department. So yes, Station 8 is really some areas that we really want to focus. Some uplifting and some probably minor cosmetics and plumbing areas. I noticed that we're having issues of plumbing also right now. And the equipment, you guys understand maybe now I'm fighting hard to elevate and do the standard for some of the equipment. We do have a lot of...
I'm sorry, before you move into equipment, Station 8, thank you for sharing that with us. Is there just one station here on
No, I'm only referring yet to Station 8 because I got two stations.
So there are two stations?
Yes.
Okay, so equipment right now is in regards to Station 8?
It's Station 8. Whatever, until I move to Station 9, then that's where another issues at that Station 9.
Thank you, please proceed.
Okay. So, Station 8, the main focus for us because that's where the main chunk of the operation is at. So we need to mobilize a lot of equipment in that particular stations. So, Galomeningi, unisita mass securing on that facility. Utunga na buntik of the pulo na fasilidad ipago. I know I got 3 ambulance right now. In Winigi Municipality, there's a fire truck. And I know there's one brush fire truck coming in. And at the same time, also on this operation site, I did manage again to submit another grant for our rescue operation, the Sorrow Division on the defense, a rescue boat for defense. So particularly, I need funding para additional, you call it shelter for these equipments. Okay. I'm wishing with this more appropriation from the general fund can, look into the most critical areas for us. And I may now go to Station 9.
Just to clarify on your equipment, you mentioned 3 ambulances.
Yes.
1 brush fire truck.
No, it's on a process right now.
1 rescue boat.
No, I just submit that grant.
So that's the grant?
Yes, and I'm praying no, my grant.
I'll pray for you.
Yes, please, I need that help.
And
the
fire
prayers.
truck?
Was that?
You mentioned fire truck,
Yes, I got one engine, fire truck.
one engine fire truck. And it's currently operating.
Everything is operational.
Okay, please proceed.
Yeah, and on Station 8, mainly that's where the administration at site. I'm sorry, Station 9, take my word. Station 8, I just mentioned that's the operation. Station 9, that's the administration. Yeah. So mainly the operation for Station 9 is all in regards to the administrative work. All my administrative personnel is housed into that, which is located kay Gigi sa Sinapalo. Muntir man tulong kami, ba't ko na rin liya. Other than that, locate we built a temporary a shelter there in between the two containers, but that's not a permanent shelter. I house one ambulance up there because of shortage of the facility down at Station 8 in Songsong. Tinawag ng fasilidad niya Papa. Was mainly sa Sinapalo para gaygi administrasyon na banda. But I plan to erect another housing for that brush fire truck to when that thing comes in. Probably, Mr. Chairman, maybe if you can probably advise also the members of that they don't see the administration building up. Is he adjacent to it? There's an open space there. I have a plan to put that up at a bay area. It's like to park ambulance or any heavy equipment, or for that matter that I just mentioned the brush fire truck that's forthcoming, and I need to erect that facility up.
How are your computers at Station 9?
I need computers.
Are there any there currently working?
Yes.
How many?
Probably I got like 1, 2, 3, probably 4 out there.
How old are they?
Very old. Need to change.
I'm gonna write.
Yeah, very old. Basta kinenlagay na sulit ulo pasaypan man maupepera pa ako dito mo o basta man nalaman. So hopefully wabiragi magino daw sa inyo adulektan.
Yes. And so moving on, thank you for sharing your facilities and maintenance.
Okay.
Equipment. Now I'd like to talk about maintenance. So how do you keep all of your equipment up to date with maintenance? Who is in charge of maintenance? Do you have current contracts out for maintenance needs on the vehicles, etc.?
Hunggan. Wahano I got a personnel that's in charge on a daily basis, on a routine basis for all a personnel that's operating all emergency vehicles to have a checklist. That's one of the priority before they even go out and respond. That make sure that that equipment is operable. Malik para pay komunidad. So in maintenance, yes, we do only here one wahano Rota vendors that when it comes every 3 to 4 months, we make those maintenance checklists and send those vehicles for change oil and other regular basis that's needed for those emergency vehicles. But yes, we do have those maintenance checklists. At the same time, we do changes all those when we bring it into the vendors.
And are your vendors paid?
Yes,
Are they paid up to date?
hopefully finance I'm pretty sure now, yes, probably, because we never had an issue of going back there and they not refuse our service. So that means maybe they've been paid.
Okay, thank you, because that is something that departments are sharing with us, that, requests are made, invoices submitted, but the vendors are not receiving payment. So I'm glad they are still accepting your request. And how about cleaning services? So if, you were to respond to a scene, who takes care of the cleaning services for these vehicles, like the ambulances?
Our guys. And we train our future cadets to be firefighters. How to be responsible when those equipment, being operated. So these individuals
Thank
also
you.
are part of it, making sure that they know what is going on.
Right.
But the Mas Takilo, whoever respond, that unit is responsible of that equipment.
Thank
So-
you. Thank you for teaching responsibility and passing on that value and for taking pride in your equipment and your facilities. It's so valuable to our community, and thank you for spending time with us today. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Rota.
Thank you, Rep. Abata. I think the series of questions from Rep. Abata may have stemmed from, I guess, the reason behind why the department's submission seems too low. Based on the volume 1, your request for fiscal year 2022 for operations alone is at 54,000. Where was the department going to seek the additional funds to run the operations?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To clarify that, enggak, financial. Public Law 13-35 that they gave us only that, but on the 2019 when we requested is somewhere 100-some thousand, but they chunked it down in governor's proposal. But at least they gave me additional from the House side from last year, not from the original, but the governor's proposal was probably like 40-some thousand, and then when the House I requested additional funds, they gave us probably additional like 10 to 14,000 upon approval. But that figure and that number, Mr. Chairman, that's still very low.
Are you saying there's a cap on how much the department can request?
What do you mean? There's no cap for life on the department here in fire, Mr. Chairman. I requested 100-some thousand from that previous, but remember when they popped they even chunked a lot of from the operation side. They only maintain some of the mommy personnel, but they even remove our vacancies. Actually, they took out all. Remember when they implement the 64-hour and this 30? That really leaves us have no choice, but I have to operate on a very minimal with a very conservative budget. But just to let you guys know that we survived, and you guys bring it up, and I don't want to wait for you guys to ask me this question. We survived with the revolving fund. Okay, we got the ambulance fee and the prevention. Prevention now is just right now it's flowing, trying to coming back because of the directive back then when we don't implement any permits to para vendors or for those facility that's needed during the business when we got the lockdowns. But the ambulance fee is the one actually really support us. And you guys asked me that question last year, and I just want to bring that up. I'm gonna find out sa lapit department. Yes, the revolving fund, and you guys know already about the revolving fund, but it's very minimal. But we managed to do the conservative efforts para sustaining, and we mainly use that for the operation on fuel, mostly fuel, or for emergency vehicles. That's the main chunk, and for maintenance. What Rep. Babauta was mentioning earlier. Those are the funds that we really use those funds on the revolving side also. With a minimal or additional 60,000 you were mentioning, Mr. Chairman, earlier. Yeah.
Okay, and one last question for now. There wasn't any request for overtime, nor was there any awarded either way. How much in overtime? And I know that Commissioner Mendiola has expressed with the legislators that they've been very conservative in terms of paying out overtime, and I know the department is stretched thin, but with your revolving fund, I guess, how much has Rota incurred in overtime within the past year?
Well, Mr. Chairman, very minimal overtime for defense here in Rota, because the only time that I open up overtime when there is true emergency, a good example during fire drought season, which is I'm preparing now. This season is coming up. And any true emergency that needs manpower, I have no choice. No, I demand my command to bring additional manpower if needed, if it's a very true emergency. So, but as much as we minimize overtime, yes, we are very conservative on overtime, no, Mr. Chairman. I can't give you the specific figures, but I'm sure that I have not seen much overtime on defense because of issues that we really conserve because of our budget constraint.
All right, thank you for that. Any other members? I recognize Rep. Abanta and Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and buenas tardes para todos. Question, you mentioned a CDBG grant being applied for by the defense sector, right? And you said
As a recollection, yes, I remember we mentioning in some of our command meetings, but I never seen, I'm not part of the submittal of that grant, but we heard a discussion, I heard over the table with the commission that they had discussion of the opportunity to take a grant opportunity through the CDBG, but I have no idea if they really went through with that. I'm not part of it. Commissioner was mentioning if that grant's been awarded, he makes sure that the two islands also receive proportionally portion of the grants for particularly with these COVID issues that we're facing right now.
my next question was, do you know how much? Have they communicated how much?
Like I said, I'm not we had a round discussion on that, the opportunity that was mentioning that to take that opportunity, there's a grant for under the CDBG and the fire, and I also support to take that opportunity, but I have no idea ko patuno ma-aplika gezi, but no ko manmanoy nino na sta na grant tutungok sabihan, tada tiningo. Law hunggan u haso tati na ma-indiskuti na para persauno geno man-aplika geno na oportunidad.
Do you think it would be in your best interest to ask them if
Sinya by Faisin.
they have already submitted their application?
Yeah. I should know, not necessarily to go through there because I look through the sinya tatungo, no information. So I'm pretty sure na tanging guaha siyempre abi manatungo.
How's your relationship with defense commissioners in SECA?
Layo, siyempre ada bit niya no dagi sityo niya.
How many, you mentioned you have 23 employees currently on the defense here. ¿Cuánto sinapupunta gini ni Mayor's office? Aside from the 9 cadets?
I got also MOUs, not necessarily from the cadets, but I got 3 MOUs on
with the Mayor's office?
Yeah, Yalumi administration. I got 3.
What is the lowest salary for your admin personnel?
Right now, Fanan Tilacio no tayo total min gini sabi 550 the salary. No, if I'm not mistaken, I think Tilacio like 16,000, 17,000.
Do you have any here that are earning 12,000 admin?
Not as I recall, no, I don't think so. So look at listan mito sa taza gini kilistan ko no, right?
That's what I'm seeing, but it could be wrong. I could be reading something else. Is your talking about equipment? Is your fire truck capable of responding to high rise? I know there's no high rises here, but at least tall structures. Your fire truck that's currently.
Alika parezi imasadi kani nezi unbibenda. Anything go 2-story, we are, yes, that's a structure fire truck. Well, the high riser is not capable to go beyond probably 3-story or 4-story. Probably 1 and 2-story, probably sinya hilin. No, pinatsa ni Hanu mulo. No, anything beyond that, I'm not really sure na po pinatsa ulo ni Hanu.
I don't recall seeing any fire hydrants here. I could be wrong.
Tidak ada no sufa gitsalan.
Okay. And they're all operational?
Operational.
Okay, that's good. By the way, I love the water here in Rota. Equipment-wise, How old is the, I don't know what they call it, the suit that the firefighters use to, when they have to, the gear?
Mambio para the computer, Mambio. But you know what?
Because that was one of the top requests from Defense Saipan is.
It is, and I'm appealing to you as a committee as a whole, please help defend because we really need bunker gears. We really need firefighting equipment right now. They're all, some of them, especially in Saipan, that they've got more personnel. They need more additional new equipment for them. We need is a Rota. Yes, we do need, 100% we need. The last cycle that we got here, none of us have got been no offensive manmanay, no dunya, no bunker gears. There's no bunker gears. And also firefighting equipment, we need to upgrade some of our firefighting equipment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Deputy, just a quick clarification on your letter that you just turned in. You had requested about $575,000 for personnel, and the governor's office allowed at $593,000. And the letter, and then ARP is also allowing you $129,000. But the letter here for your 12 firefighter cadets, were they not included in the original submission?
No.
Okay, so this is an additional.
That's an additional funds, additional burden for all of us.
So clarified, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And you mentioned there was 12 cadets, but I only count 9.
OVR cannot pay more than 8 hours also, just to clarify that also. So, we cannot go beyond that time also with some of the cadets. And some of our cadets here right now is under the, we're waiting for the grants. And if I said, Mr. Chairman, and this committee, please look into their action. There is 7 action right now that's under the grant that we transitioning from the the Mayor's CARES Act account to the grant, but they're still pending up in Saipan now with these actions. So I appeal this body fund like, por favor, po siya na do that, located, Mr. Chairman. Siya man ma-expedite, they're about to leave for this emergency academy, and I hope their papers will be done before that.
Thank you very much.
But yes, Vice, there is no, there's nothing in the original version that we submitted. That's an additional fund. That's why, as an amended letter, that one's included into that, because I didn't anticipate a fire academy because of this COVID. But with this emergency, I had to revise back again and request this August body on the Ways and Means to please help me out.
Clarified, sir.
Yeah.
Before I close, I just want to wish your cadets best wishes on your training. Get in there and welcome to public service.
Thank you, Vice.
Okay, so you just mentioned that there are 7 actions pending in order to transition the, is it 7 actions pending, or 7 of them have?
It's been routed already. It's on a routing process. But I appeal to this committee to look into it, if they can expedite.
Are they currently being paid?
No. Some of them here right now, it's not been paid. Some of them is still under the CARES Act. We transitioned the original 7 cadets from the previous cycle, because of that's the intent of that grant. When the pandemic hits, we applied for that, for these particular issues when the cycle was closed down. So the grant's been approved, so we are transitioning to put them into the grants funding.
Okay, but while you were waiting for that transition, they're not receiving?
They're not working right now, but we put them in as some of them are volunteers right now, because we want to maintain, they just got their agility test last 2 weeks ago, and we want to maintain that. Because if they go up to Saipan, they're going to go to a previous again, another segment of a certificate before they even go to the actual academy. So we want to contain that mentality right now here until they reach up to Saipan. So they are coming in voluntarily, putting an effort that they really want to be part of this helping the community, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. All right, we'll look into that. I'll call you up if I have any more
Please, Mr.
questions
Chairman.
in regards to those 7 individuals. We do have a public hearing coming up soon, so I'm going to wrap it up. And then if any members have any questions, I'll forward that to you. Going back to the CBDG, and that's why I brought it up, because during the acting deputy mayor's time, when I met with several of the firefighters, they mentioned that I think an ambulance was in the process of being purchased through the CBDG.
Yes, we do. We got that.
You got it already?
We got that,
okay.
yes.
So clarified. At this time, members, should you have any additional questions, please send them directly to the Deputy Commissioner or share it with me and I'll certainly forward that to him. Sorry, one last request. Did you have your wish list with you, or is this something that you're going to be providing the committee later on?
I'll probably provide you, even if Rep. Blanc was requesting about this, and Rep. About the request about our, uplifting the facility and what equipment we need.
Okay.
So I'll be forwarding you that information, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. And so, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we just want to take this opportunity to thank you, Deputy Commissioner, and your team, the fellow firefighters, as well as our future firefighters. As you may or may not know, you will be our neighbor up at the hill, and so please feel free to reach out to any of the representatives if you need any help. And we look forward to seeing you there real soon. And so with that, Deputy Commissioner, the committee would like to extend its appreciation and gratitude for all the work that you've been doing in terms of battling this pandemic and keeping us safe and continuing to keep us safe. And so from the bottom of our hearts, we salute you, we thank you. And with that, I'll hand over the floor back to you for some closing remarks.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and thank you very much, all members and the AOE staff. Param Torulu, Dong Kululu na si Zeus Masin, Finatun Mizu, Magizay, Babay, Kapitan Mizu, Bini, Masya Dididi. So in Sida Dididi, no rasyon Magi para komunidad tagini dan ekonomi atat. So I appreciate the short stay. And I wish you guys a safe flight home. Mr. Chairman, ito sa biutsum. Bulagi, puro famakon mo gini ni tao mo gini ni high school. Because please look at them. They're willing to have a career in their life. So I appeal to this committee. Talo, por favor, ayudam nesigi. The tafana ayuda with this pandemic. We all pray na taza udaw para mo nesigi na natsendulu patugi luganta. Dahil na ugay gimindisyon para itatuloy tiramenti no Marianas. Tala Mr. Chairman, si Zeus Masi, gini di defense no family to hamdo na komite dahil tiramenti Marianas si Zeus Masi tala.
Thank you again. All right, members, with that, this concludes our budget hearing, but in order to officially close out, we are moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is public comment. Would any member of the public like to make any comments at this time? All right, if none, moving on to announcements. Just a quick announcement, coming up right after this budget hearing, the Natural Resources Committee has about 5 bills on the agenda, open to the public for comments. So please stick around. Any members would like to make any announcement? None. Our next budget hearing is scheduled for Tinian on Monday and Tuesday. And so with that, can I get a motion for adjournment? Motion for adjournment was made by Rep. Blanco and seconded. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.